And landlord will be begging to come and remove so that I can go out.
Oh, goodness. All right, so let's look at this one that says National Assembly resumes today, demands 2025 budget. It's also on the business day. It says Senate resumes today with focus on 2025 budget and flood. But that's just even by the way, because another thing that is crucial right now to talk about is food. And I hope that in the budget, they're thinking of our economic reforms. So here on the business day, it leads with Finance Ministry, customs bureaucracy stalls zero tariff food imports. So now we know that there was supposed to be a zero tariff on food importation for, I think, 5 months. That was it was 150 days, exactly. 150 days. And this is 2 months after. They still haven't started yet. What is taking so long, especially knowing that we need this food? We probably have food insecurity at the moment, shortage in food supply for Nigerians. And of course, the one that we have right now is so expensive for people to be able to afford. This zero importation or the tax being taken out was supposed to help even not just businesses, but Nigerians at large. And 2 months later, nothing has begun. I want to get your take on this, why it's taking so long, and are they even going to start anytime soon?
That's the problem of leadership, and that is why every time we always hammer on leadership. If you don't have leadership that is proactive, that has the capacity to be able to lead from the front, that is what you get. There's a government policy to that. Probably, I don't know, I can't remember whether a committee was set up to be able to look after that or supervise that. If they did, if the government did, because you can't just throw up a policy and say, oh, remove all it. Have you set up a task force to go to the port and make sure that those this thing given by government is completely adhered to, strictly adhered to. So if you didn't do that, then they just 2 months after, we are still dealing on the issue of tariff. And you know what that has caused? What that has caused is that we have now seen a lot of ships moving and discharging at the Cotonou port instead of Lagos port. What it means that most of those ships now go and discharge at Cotonou port, which to them is cheaper. And from there, Nigerians smuggle the product into Nigeria. And that is what's happening. Because I remember listening to somebody some days back on TV, and he was saying he had a meeting with some manufacturers in I think in Brazil or one of those countries. And he was asking them, oh, is your product, do you export your products to Nigeria? And the guy said no. The answer, but unfortunately, that their highest export in the African region is in West Africa. In fact, particularly Benin. Do you know what that means? What it means is that because if you look at Benin, how many people are in Benin? What it means is that they export those products to Benin, to their ports, and Nigerians go there to be able to pick them and bring in. So because Nigeria is where the market is, so probably over 80% of that market. So we are not only losing resources, but also losing some of our business. So that is the problem with it. So if a government gave a directive over 2 months ago till now, there is no direct, nobody is doing anything about it. And the cost of food is still skyrocketing on a daily basis. Then he puts it down squarely on leadership. And who else will you hold responsible but the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is also the Minister of Petroleum?
Is government even serious about it? Because they have made pronouncements, a lot of them, and they didn't happen. And we didn't seem to see any consequences happening. You remember we were promised that we were going to buy a bag of rice for 40,000 naira. That thing didn't happen. You remember we also were promised that we were going to be given free rice at some point, you know, that the silos would be opened and rice will come. We heard now that the silos did not even have a grain of rice and all that. We didn't hear any consequences on anybody. And they still made these pronouncements. It looks as if they knew that this would not work, but they needed to just bring down the tension, you know, say something like, just for saying sake. It doesn't seem like the government itself is serious about anything they're talking about, or they know what the outcome will be, but they know that Nigerians will not say anything about it.
Let me even take it. The 70,000 naira minimum wage that was signed off some weeks or months back hasn't been implemented. I'm just asking you.
You see, that's the same thing. Good. Pronouncements without anything.
So
but within that time, after the pronouncement of 70,000, we know how the fuel has gone up now that Labour has even saying that they are doing
they agreed on 70,000, but within the last 2 weeks, we've increased fuel price twice. The last two weeks, twice. Don't forget, on the day that Dangote announced the commencement of his petrol product, NNPC came that day to announce an increase on the price of petrol. Within 1 week again, when they start lifting, NNPCL also increased the price of fuel a second time, twice within a space of just 2 weeks. That is on one side. All the promises that were made by the government when they removed the subsidy, there are going to be CNG buses all over the country, and this one is going to happen. Ask yourself, close to 1 year after 1 year, which of them has been implemented? You are still talking about the one of removal of some level of taxes on. So, and that is why I talk about what we're saying is just what Fela calls government arrangement. Remember that song by Fela. This is government arrangement, and they are just using it to just deceive Nigerians until we have the capacity. Now they're increasing taxes. They are trying to find ways of squeezing out money again from Nigeria. They are talking about the telecom, which one is now something cyber security tax. They are talking of the other, so many things. Taxes, they already overtaxed Nigerians. Nigerians, if you go, my brother, my sister, I'm sure you see this every morning. Most people, you see the level at which people trek in Lagos now. Trekking. If you go to the bus stop and see the number of people that are always there begging to, please, can you help us? Can you help us? Can you carry us? We are going around and see somebody well-dressed coming to us, boss, I beg. I don't say make it just not give me 500, I beg. See that book there, just come buy me food. I beg, just buy me food, just give me. No, make them even put meat. That is the situation we have gotten to now. We have practically everything is, and I said it time and time again. In those days, we used to have the upper class, the middle class, and lower class. They have removed the middle. It's either you're up there or you're down there. And those that are up there are normally politicians and so-called people that are making free money. Every other person is down here, and Nigerians are dying by the day. We've talked about food. Have you asked yourself the cost of drugs in Nigeria now? The cost of drugs, it has risen to over 1,000%. Most people cannot afford all the necessary drugs, as little as paracetamol, what they call analgesics. So many people cannot afford it. It's because we don't have we're a country without data. If we have a data, you'll be surprised by the number of Nigerians that are dying on a daily basis because they cannot be able to feed, because they cannot be able to afford drugs. And also you see some of them having a high level of hypertension. Parents cannot pay school fees. I don't even want to start here. I don't want to start counting. Everybody know all the indices because we cannot continue counting and counting. But it's so depressing, sincerely depressing.
It's quite scary and it's alarming where we are now. We're not really looking at the crisis that we're faced with. And everybody's just living and surviving. But hopefully things will get better really, really, really soon. Anyways, I want to say thank you, Chris, for coming. It's always a pleasure discussing with you. Always a pleasure looking at the papers and the little jabs that you add into it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President. Mr. Smith, I am. Have a wonderful day ahead.
You too. Have a nice day. All right, we've been speaking with Chris Kehinde Nwandu. He's a chartered arbitrator in the UK, and we've just been taking global stories that made it to the front pages of our national dailies. We'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll be discussing more on the Edo politics. Well, PDP has rejected the results, and now they head to court. So please stay with us.
An African girl somewhere is sitting at home, accompanied by dreams that seem so far away. Africa is one of the continents with the highest out-of-school percentage in education, and girls are at an early disadvantage. The sub-Saharan Africa records about 18 million out-of-school girls. This gender gap extends to the tech space with a projection of only a 33% global female workforce representation in tech firms for 2022. Let us help change the stories and numbers. Africa Agility's Project Train a Girl campaign is working to help train African girls in tech. You can donate as little as $2 or 2,000 naira to help a girl in tech get her heels in open the door. Visit www.africaagility.rallyup.com/PTAG to donate.
What we see and envy in other countries, we don't pay enough attention to how it is done. So for example, people are always talking about, we should tell African stories. I smile.
I'm one of those who says that.
I think that we should talk to ourselves first before we're even worried about what people are thinking about us. We overvalue the opinion of other people. We don't value ourselves. We don't value our people.
But isn't that why we should tell our own story?
To ourselves.
Yes, first.
Do you understand?
Yes.
So we won't be talking about telling African story because we didn't wake up this morning and think first and foremost I'm African. I think I'm Nigerian.
That's what I'm
You
saying.
understand? So in Nigeria,
Yes.
first and foremost, we need to talk to ourselves. How do we talk to ourselves? What do we say to ourselves?
What's
Every
our
day.
reality?
So what does reality mean?
Reality.
And what lens are we looking at reality from?
Thanks for staying with us. We go now to our first hot topic. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has rejected the results of a Edo State governorship election in which the All Progressives Congress APC candidate Senator Monday Okpebholo was declared the winner by INEC. PDP acting national chairman Umar Damagum claimed that the election was rigged in favor of the APC through collusion with security forces and compromised INEC officials, and that their candidate, Asue Godalo, was the legitimate winner. The PDP announced plans to challenge the election results in court, urging Nigerians and the international community to support their rejection of the declared outcome. Our guest this morning is Barrister Elvis Asia, legal practitioner. Barrister, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on the program.
Okay.
Good morning.
Before we get into the intricacies of the election in Edo State, let's first of all get your what your red card looks like when you want to score INEC in a Edo election.
Well, the election was marred by several challenges, which we should not be hearing at this point in time. INEC has conducted several elections in this country. One would have thought that most of the issues being expressed now would have been taken care of. There were, so many issues in many areas in Edo South. Elections didn't start on time. Materials were delivered late. And the ad hoc staff, the NYSC people were protesting non-payment at some point. All of that delayed the process of conducting the election in many places in Edo South. Many people would say that it may have been deliberate to reduce the voters' turnout in the area. There were also issues with vote buying that was very apparent in many of the polling units. INEC officials were there, security agencies were there. It is shocking that not much is being done by INEC in an attempt to nip vote buying at the board, because at the end of the day, it strikes at the heart of our elections. elections should honorably reflect the will of the people. But when it becomes purely transactional in the face of INEC and security agencies, then that casts doubt on the process. And I think the most challenging part of this process for INEC was the collation of results. You know, there were so many issues raised around collation. Some local governments were moved to the headquarters without notice and in a very the manner, you know, with the use of force by security agencies. All of this will cast doubt on the way when elections are conducted. But you know, we'll give it to INEC in terms of the seamlessness with which card readers were used and all of that. But generally, INEC hasn't really done much better than previous elections in terms of the way and manner they have handled this election.
That worked or that were used and all that. We saw a case of, or cases of overvoting, where we saw the number of accredited voters less than the number of the eventual voters according to the result sheets and all that. So how did these machines work, and they still had these discrepancies within the electoral system?
Well, I mean, those stories about overvoting are really quite shocking. One would have thought that with the kind of technology we have in place in the beavers, we won't have incidents of overvoting, because they're supposed to be accredited, they're supposed to be verified to be sure that you are a legitimate holder of the card. You shouldn't ordinarily be able to vote more than once. So those kind of cases, again, points to the fact that INEC didn't do quite well in this election. But quite frankly, they are isolated, you know, cases. Wasn't widespread. I want to believe that some desperate politicians in a few areas may have, you know, pushed INEC to, you know, have results that they reflect the voters' accreditation or turnout or register in those areas. It's also, like I said, it's something that INEC didn't do quite well in this election. We shouldn't be hearing of cases like this in an election where we have invested so much funds and resources on technology, you know, in the beavers, which ordinarily, so if we have cases like that, it simply means that either the beavers weren't used or that they were, you know, manipulated.
So how come? So it was said that I think under 2 hours, you know, IREV was already, the results were already uploaded. So if you're saying that the beavers were not even working, how were they able to collate all of these results? And how come we have a winner already when there's definitely been some irregularities with the election?
No, I cannot say the beavers didn't work. They worked. It's, you know, I was only responding to a few isolated cases where it was said that there was overvoting. It was isolated. Generally, the beavers worked. And like you said, you know, results were actually transmitted to the IRF. But, you know, it turns out later that the collation, according to a lot of the people who were part of the process, civil society organizations, the losing parties, they have suggested that, you know, what was collated in the final analysis did not reflect what you had in the IRF. So, you know, initially, it would have been very beautiful to have the results, you know, transmitted electronically through the IRF, so that that can now be used to assess whatever it is that you have in the physical copies of the documents, which is the one that is recognized by law. But INEC should ordinarily be able to compare, so that if what was sent directly from the polling unit is different from what is being collated at the collation centers, INEC has the power to compare and ask questions. And even the law now gives them a period of 7 days to be able to do all of this. So, you know, I mean, it's quite unfortunate that we have a situation where results sent to IRF is now being said to be different from what was collated. It just shows something wasn't quite right with that process.
Yeah, but the same things happened in 2023, and like you said, it's shocking that it's still happening at this time. where we will find that results are not tallying, and INEC is seeming not to do anything about it. But my question, let's peek into the Electoral Act. You talked something about vote buying and all that, and that INEC has not been able to do their job and all. According to the Electoral Act, is this the problem of INEC to arrest the people who are doing vote buying, or the police? If it is not spelled out, how should it be? Because we need to know who should be responsible for vote buyers. Should it be INEC? Should it be the police? Should it be DSS? Who is supposed to be responsible? If it is INEC, don't you think they are overwhelmed already?
It's everybody you have mentioned, but INEC is the organizer of this election. INEC is the one that will require security. INEC is the one that will direct and tell security where it is needed. So they are supposed to collaborate with the security agencies, the DSCC, the police, and other security agencies to arrest people who are found to be loitering around and buying votes. INEC has their staff. They have their people at polling units who are seeing these people obviously buying votes. So they should be able to alert the security agencies. And if the security agencies are not doing anything about it, then they should tell us so that we can know where to put the blame. But it is clear that in most places it's a connivance because for you to even succeed in allowing vote buying to influence the outcome of the election at a polling unit, the INEC staff must even allow the politicians to be able to determine who these people are voting for. Because ordinarily, if you give me money at a polling unit and if the voting is secret, I should be able to go and vote my conscience even if I've collected the money. But the way the politicians have done it is such that they are able to confirm whether or not you vote for their candidates. And so this means that there's a collusion between INEC at the polling units and the police, the security agencies, and the politicians. So it's the blame has to go around. INEC cannot run away from this. This vote buying will be curtailed and reduced if politicians are not able to verify or confirm who the people they have paid money voted for. So the fact that they can do that shows collusion and connivance. So the blame is for everybody because INEC has the ultimate responsibility to conduct a free and fair election and to use the aid or use the security agencies to assist them in doing so. And so the security agencies are there. So there should be a formal way of reporting to say, look, this is happening at a particular center. And so if the security agencies don't act, INEC should be able to come out and say, look, we did our job. We tried to prevent this, but that security agencies did not help us. They have never said that. So that shows that there's a connivance and collusion between INEC, the police, and the politicians.
Well, of course, I'm sure everybody expected a free and fair election and expected INEC to do their jobs. But of course, now there are reports that, there's vote buying, there's rigging, and it's just who rigged more is the best rigger that probably won. Now, PDP has challenged this result. They've said, no, I don't think, APC should have won, and they're headed to court at the moment. How do you think the court would, take on this and PDP would seek redress? Do you think they might be confident that the court would just overturn, the results that are in now? And is this where we are today, whereby, results are not being determined by the people, but instead it's being determined by the courts, by the judiciary?
My advocacy has always been for people to do the right thing, not only when it is convenient. Because just like you said, this is a case of politicians, playing their game, trying to rig the process, trying to buy votes. So it's not a case of who outsmarted the other. So we must ensure that we do the right thing, so that it becomes a norm. Right now, it's not. The norm right now is for politicians to try to influence the process, try to buy the wishes and aspirations of the people. For the PDP, for example, they conducted a local government election a few months ago in Edo State. That was purely a sham. Crying now that because they had the control of the machinery for that election, now it's the turn of the APC, who seems to have the support of the federal government the security agencies, and who knows, perhaps even the umpire itself, and they have now been able to outsmart them. And so this is something that we all, as a people, must really fix. You cannot be crying only when it does not suit you. You should be crying at all time and insist on the right things being done. Now, having said that, yes, it is their right to go to the court, but we know that the political system of the country right now is so structured that politicians have even designed the law in such a way that once they have succeeded in quote stealing the votes, and it's almost difficult, almost impossible to overturn it. That's the way they have designed the electoral system. You have to prove almost beyond reasonable doubt, as if it was a criminal case. You have to show that there's no compliance, for example, substantially affected the vote, and perhaps you could have been declared winner. So it's a very difficult process. We saw in the 2023 elections, for example, where INEC overnight somersaulted against its own regulations and rules to transmit results electronically, and the court supported them. So the politicians have exploited these loopholes in the law, and the way our judicial process has, quite frankly, with due respect, been influenced by the society, that we have found ourselves. And so, whether or not you are going to be able to overturn the results is a very different issue entirely. And let's even speak generally about the results. Yes, there were manipulations and all of that, but sometimes you want to also ask yourself whether, despite all of these manipulations, the political party actually could have also won fairly. Because this election wasn't really about the candidates of APC, PDP, or Labour Party. It was a proxy war between political godfathers, Obaseki and Adams Oshiomhole, and of course Felix Shaibu, that was edged out by Obaseki. And Obaseki has taken on too many unnecessary battles in Edo State. He's isolated those who brought him, who supported him in his second term. In fact, what you call the PDP now in Edo State is not really the PDP. It's just a group of people loyal to Obaseki. The real PDP that used to win elections, that were doing well before Obaseki came, have been decimated. They've been thrown out of the party, and they are all now in the APC. And so the political force that was against Obaseki in this election was so much that I don't really know how he was going to survive it. Obaseki had, even decimated traditional institutions, shows disrespect for the Oba. As I am a Benin man, the Oba is the symbol of my identity. If you take the Oba away, then I'm no longer a Benin man. So when you begin to disrespect the Oba, that's going to count in elections. And so I don't really know how they're going to succeed in the court, but they have the right to do so. And let's see how it plays out.
Okay, so in a nutshell, what are the lessons that because every year we learn lessons, every election we learn lessons. What are these lessons that we will take away from Edo election and make sure the Ondo and other elections that are off cycle as well, we do better as a people, not just the INEC now, but all of us are involved in this matter. So what are these lessons that we need to take away to make our electoral system better?
I think for the people, the lesson is very clear. This is a vicious cycle. If you allow politicians to buy your votes today, they have given you, they have paid for it. And so they're going to eventually run the affairs of state in a manner to make profit. Because leadership should actually be about the people. But if the people themselves have now allowed politicians to buy their votes, that is a big problem. And so you won't have the moral justification to complain when they're not doing well enough. So the people must actually rethink this idea of allowing politicians to go away with their mandates with peanuts. Yes, I understand the economic situation that everybody's facing in the country, but why are we facing this economic situation? Is it because we have bad leaders? And why are we having bad leaders? It is because the people allow the bad leaders to scale through once they are able to bring in peanuts like they did in this election. So the lesson for the people is that the only way out of this vicious cycle is for us to stand up to the politicians and do what is right at all times. And then another thing is that we need to invest in voters' education. A lot of people don't really understand the impact of these elections. And that's why you see that the turnout in this election was so poor and abysmal. that even a donor that is not supposed to be half of what the vote you get in Edo Central, had more votes than Edo South. And so you can see that the people needs to be educated on the issue of vote buying, on how to vote, on the import of elections. But unfortunately, we're not doing much in that regard. INEC needs to find a way to control the way and manner politicians spend money for elections. You cannot have an unrestrained post, allow politicians to be unrestrained in the way and manner they disburse these funds and all of that. And then we must all continue to cry out, because we can't continue to allow the state capture by those in power using security agencies to overwhelm the people, to overwhelm the process, and then to get their way. We have to make sure that the security agencies, we have independent institutions that can, and ultimately the most important in all of this mix is the judiciary. The lesson we have learned is that politicians are picking on the loopholes that the judiciary has always, left in the decisions that we have seen in the past. And so the politicians find a way to manipulate the process in such a way that when they go to court, it will not affect the outcome of the election. So the judiciary must wake up, and the judiciary must begin to do. There are ways our laws can be creatively interpreted to suit the needs of the people. But what we have seen in the past is that the judiciary has been used to interpret the law in such a way that as to embolden politicians in this outright manipulation of elections. And so we all have to appeal to the judiciary, to always uphold the law. Once there is a case of irregularity in our elections, then INEC should be the one to justify it. It shouldn't be my business to prove it. Once I can show that there's irregularity, then the judiciary should be able to do the right thing, so that in the next election, politicians will not be worried. Right now they are not worried. They feel that whatever they do at the moment will be given a pat in the back by the judiciary. So these are some of the issues that we need to look at and lessons we need to learn going forward.
All right. Well, it's a good way to drop it today. I think in the coming days we'll see what actions will be taken by PDP. They have promised to go to court. They have not yet gone to court. Maybe they are putting their acts right, and we'll see how it pans out and know what is going to maybe use that as an idea of what is going to come in Ondo and other places that have off-cycle elections. But at this point, we'd like to thank you, Barrister, for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be talking to Barrister Elvis Asia, a legal practitioner. We're looking at Edo election, Edo governorship election, in which the candidate for the APC has been declared winner so far, but other parties are aggrieved and they say they're heading to court, especially the People's Democratic Party. Let's see how that happens and how that pans out. We'll take a break now, and when we return, we'll be looking at the fact that Kogi women have protested and are accusing EFCC of persecuting Yahaya Bello. That will be an interesting one. Stay with us.
It is not the hope of this feature to blame anyone for the never-ending tension between police and the citizens. However, it is certain that there is always a tension with most people when they approach a police checkpoint. Many factors are responsible for this tension, including not knowing what to expect or do, seeing the police as the enemy, or even being guilty of an infraction. Many issues that go wrong at a police checkpoint can be linked to lack of proper communication and understanding on the side of the police force and also on the side of the citizen. Here are some tips listed by the police force about comporting yourself at a police checkpoint. Endeavor to slow down your vehicle. It shows that you're not reckless. It also douses suspicion that you're a criminal and may want to speed off. Turn down the volume of your car stereo. Courtesy demands this. Besides, you are able to hear each other better. This simple act will help you win the confidence of the security operative. Keep your hands visible to avoid unnecessary suspicion or fear by the officers that you're attempting to bring out a gun or other harmful objects to attack them. Turn on the inner light of your vehicle while approaching the cops if at night. It readily sends an unspoken message that you have nothing to hide.
That's the nature of your job, officer. Don't worry. That's the nature of your Everything job, will be fine.
Be friendly and cheerful. Commend the officers, especially when you see them working under very unfriendly weather conditions, such as rains and harsh harmattan conditions, excessive heat, cold, or sunshine. We know it's their job, but a little kind word from you will do a lot of good. Remember, when you smile at the mirror smiles back at you.
Officer will not come down. Let's see what you do. Don't mind this. We won't come down.
Endeavor to be polite when answering questions put to you by the officers. Don't dare or challenge an armed security man to a duel. Oftentimes, you hear people say things like, "Shoot me if you can." Note that this is a recipe for disaster. It is a very provocative and unnecessary call for war. So please, play safe, more so as you do not know the state of mind of the officer concerned. Also, don't go into a physical fight with an armed security officer. He may resort to the use of his weapon to defend himself. Avoid unnecessary arguments with armed security personnel. There are 1,001 ways to seek redress where you feel your rights have been infringed upon. Never try to touch an officer in an
Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Now, Kogi women protest accuse EFCC of persecuting Yahaya Bello. A large group of Kogi women protested in Lokoja against the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, alleged persecution of former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello, calling it a political motivated witch hunt. The women, led by community and party leaders, urged President Bola Tinubu to intervene, demanding that the EFCC allow the courts to handle the case and accusing the agency of targeting Bello unfairly. The protesters, representing various ethnic groups in Kogi, praised Bello's leadership and vowed to continue supporting him, rejecting any attempt to tarnish his reputation. Joining us to discuss this and just understand it a bit more is Biodun Shewumi, is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So apparently, Yahaya Bello seems to have a lot of supporters that claim he did a lot, for Kogi State. He was a former governor of Kogi State. But of course, we heard reports of him swindling money. We heard, I think, about 70 billion naira. There was just
82 billion.
Yes, it was a huge amount of money anyway. So we've heard of siphoning public funds. But even with this, there's still people who are supporting him and saying the EFCC is just, trying to witch hunt him. I want to get your take on this story. What is happening, especially with someone that, it's allegedly saying that he's been corrupt, but there are people who are still supporting him, saying he was one of the best governors that they've ever had in Kogi State.
Well, it's amazing the way we react to issues in Nigeria.
I like the word amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm trying to avoid saying I'm petrified or mortified or shocked. You know, it's quite amazing how people view issues. You know, it's like moving from the sublime to the ridiculous. You then begin to ask yourself, what is all this about? Now, in the first instance, we should not forget that the travails of Yahya Bello started when Yahya Bello was highly influential in the Buhari's government. You know, he was known to be well connected and close to the president and the president's wife as a sitting governor. That was when the EFCC first picked up the tab. You remember the 20 billion naira lodged in an account, the bailout money, which eventually they were forced, you know, to return it back to Kogi State's account. And then at the end of the day, the issue of 80 billion even occurred when Yahya Bello was still a sitting governor. The law allows the EFCC to investigate, and they've been carrying out their investigation. They cannot prosecute him because he enjoyed immunity. Yahya Bello, out of power, is now being, you know, prosecuted by the EFCC for the alleged infractions, you know, to the tune of 80 billion naira of public wealth. Now, you now have people within the state. Yahya Bello has refused to appear before the federal in Abuja, and he's been going from one court to the other, trying to frustrate his arraignment. Now, we now suddenly have women, you know, coming out after the House of Assembly also passed a resolution, even demanding for the removal of the EFCC chairman, and, you know, on very ridiculous grounds, alleging threats to life against the governor, against Yahya Bello. Oh, come on, where are we coming from? How did we get here to start with? When someone accused of looting public wealth, the law presumes innocence, you know, that is innocent until proven guilty. As an accused person, is still considered innocent. So therefore, what is wrong in Yahya Bello appearing before the court? Well, we've seen the role that the Kogi State governor is playing in all this. He's been featured either in preventing the arrest of Yahya Bello, or harboring him, or accompanying him to EFCC compound. So we've seen all this. The governor enjoys immunity. And therefore, for me, this is a real show of shame. It does not mean Yahya Bello is guilty of any offense. It does not mean he's guilty as charged, but that Yahya Bello has to be processed through the criminal justice system to establish his guilt or otherwise. You know, evading prosecution is not the solution to the problem. The case is already before the federal court. All he needs to do is to turn up in court. But he has so far refused to do that. So some other two people are being tried currently, who are supposed to be tried along with Yahya Bello. We do not have people protesting on their behalf, but we only have women, you know, coming out, and some, of course, you know, this is probably in this protest, you know, to campaign that Yahya Bello should be allowed to go scot-free without having to account, you know, for the alleged infractions. It does not mean he's guilty, and I'm not saying he's guilty by any means, but anybody charged before the court must appear before the court and be processed through the criminal justice system.
I just even can't imagine how the women will go out and protest and all that, but it brings to question. You mentioned the fact that he's being protected by a sitting governor. Whether you mentioned it or not, but that's the reality. He's being protected by a sitting governor. And my question has always been that, don't you think it's high time maybe we revisited this immunity clause that is for the governors and all that? I understand that it's supposed to give them some time to concentrate on what they're supposed to do. But let's take this scenario. Yahya Bello is protected by this governor. This governor commits crimes or embezzles state funds also, and the next governor, if he's lucky to install someone who will be his stooge as well, the thing continues. Government House becomes a place that should have been turned to Kirikiri or something.
It's a cycle.
So will it continue this way? Because it seems as if, apart from giving immunity to the governor, the entire government house is immune from anything. So you can commit a crime and run into government house and you cannot be arrested because, hey, why will we think that the Yahya Bello might be housed in the government house and nothing can be done about it?
Yeah, the government lodge is not immune, from being visited for purposes of apprehension of suspects or purposes of investigation. Is not. What you have is a government heavily protected by security forces, and it is chief security officer of the state who has the authority to allow people in or not. And he will simply instruct his security guards not to allow EFCC officials in. And that's exactly what has been going on. It's quite clear that the security officers attached to the government, including SSS and the police, are under the duty to protect him. And therefore, they will respond to his instruction to obstruct or to stop anybody, from gaining entrance to government house. So it does not mean that the government house itself is immune. It's actually the person that is immune. You cannot commit a crime and then run to Federal Ministry of Education or Federal Ministry of Interior and then expect that the security services will not come and apprehend you from there simply because the president is immune and the ministry is under the president. Well, that's not the case. What we've seen is a show of shame, which does not augur well, for our country. For me, no matter what the offense is, he's presumed innocent until proven guilty. And Yahaya Bello should avail himself of that opportunity. What is he afraid of? All this talk about EFCC wants to kill him, wants to kill the governor, this cannot hold water. No, this is a country being ravaged by corruption, and corruption is destroying and killing so many Nigerians. And for once, we have an agency trying its best, to deal with this problem. The money we're talking about is humongous, 80 billion naira of public wealth, siphoned allegedly. So why is it that if I am Yahaya Bello, I will probably avail myself and say, look, I have not done this. If you think I've done it, then come and prove it. After all, we do not have an accusatorial system, and whoever alleges must prove. So it is the problem of EFCC to prove whatever allegations against Yahaya Bello. And it is also the business of Yahaya Bello, to turn up in court, to have his day and, exonerate himself. So why all these sponsored protests, all these, what appear like sponsored protests, all these either sick game going on currently over a criminal matter involving a huge amount of public wealth?
Well, I don't understand who is hiding and who is seeking. Because last week, was it, that we heard that Yahaya Bello, according to his aide, went to EFCC's office. They didn't arrest him. They didn't interrogate him. He just walked in there. He walked out. Nothing happened. And then afterwards, EFCC maybe followed him or something to Government House and laid siege. EFCC came out and said that he was not in their custody, but they did not deny that he went there. So there's still a possibility that he really actually went there. So I don't know whether EFCC on its own is also playing a game that Nigerians do not understand. So when you say hide and seek, is it the Yahaya Bello that is hiding and EFCC is seeking, or EFCC is hiding, they are hiding something and the Nigerian people are seeking to know what the real situation is? Because we can't imagine why he's still out there and nothing has been done.
Yeah. Yes, if you notice one thing, Yahaya Bello went to EFCC premises accompanied by the governor, the Kogi State Governor, Ododo. I saw the visuals of that. And you and I know that there is no way the governor will be with him and you won't have a plethora of security forces, around the governor to protect him. And that includes DSS and the Nigerian police officers. And may also include the Civil Defense Corps, whose duty is to protect the government. Yahaya Bello in the company of Ododo would make it almost impossible for EFCC to immediately apprehend him, except there has to be a showdown between the EFCC operatives, who are not even prepared for him when he came, and the governor's team, who are well armed and well prepared, for the trip. So EFCC not taking a decision to arrest him may be out of sheer wisdom to say, look, we cannot, there will be a bloody confrontation, which is what they don't want. They want Yahaya Bello to face the court, but not, to lead to any loss of life. So whatever factors that influence their decision, I don't know. But that's my own, assessment based on the visuals which I saw. But that notwithstanding, who is playing hide and seek? Yahaya Bello is playing hide. And the Federal High Court is the one seeking. EFCC is only playing a role, to try and apprehend him to face the court. Is the court, look, there's a warrant of arrest issued on him. So is the Federal High Court seeking, to try Yahaya Bello, and Yahaya Bello is the one hiding from that very process. And that's the way, I think it should be interpreted clearly. The fact of the matter, which is clear, is that the governor, Ododo's protection of Yahaya Bello, is calling into question the issue of immunity for public officials. I think we have gotten to a stage now where we now see immunity serving, the goals of corruption. So, which is one thing, and impunity, which is one thing we need to resist. It is time we begin to ask questions around whether our governors in reality need immunity. After all, the Prime Minister in Italy does not have any immunity from being arrested or being prosecuted or investigated. So why are we running away from that? One of the ways in which to curb executive recklessness, lawlessness, and corruption is to remove that immunity. We have seen now even a governor who has not been accused of corruption seems or appear to be protecting a man allegedly, of looting estates of over 80 billion naira.
His hands are getting soiled now.
Which means
you're not the one.
there is nothing that you will tell Ododo or whoever is in charge now in Kogi State to make him allow a free and fair election after the tenure of Ododo, because he has to install someone who can also protect him
as well.
So 3 tenures down the line, we have criminals in government house.
So why are these women coming out? Because you would expect that the people of Kogi State should know this. You would expect that every Nigerian should know this. And you definitely want a better system of government. Why are we having several people who are supposed to stand up for the nation that their children are going to inherit, but here they're supporting this person saying it's just a witch hunt, and of course it was a very good governor. At what point do we rejig our system and the mindset of Nigerians to stand up for what is right?
Well, we faced this situation before. You remember when a former governor from Delta State, was arraigned, and on so many charges in Nigerian courts, and we couldn't convict until when he was convicted in UK.
Abroad.
And that was what ended that. And to our own shame, anyway, that he was convicted for offenses which we should have convicted him here. He was able to get away with it. At that point in time, we had people protesting, and I remember that slogan, "My thief, now my thief. Go and face your own thief," and that was the slogan at that point in time. Now we've moved far away from that. We've, moved miles away from that era, and I believe probably that former governor is now a changed person and a better person after being processed through the criminal justice system. Now back to Yahaya Bello. Look, what will motivate women to go out, to go and protest? You and I know, we all know clearly that this is not a genuine protest. What you've seen is not civil society protesting, or you have the students protesting or saying that Yahaya Bello is being persecuted, unjustly after being tried. No, you have a situation where the protest is induced, in my view, based on my own experience, that to forestall, the possibility of Yahaya Bello, being tried. They are even calling on the president to intervene. That clearly shows that they do not even know what they are talking about. There's a Federal High Court warrant. The president cannot stop that. There's a Federal High Court warrant. The process has started. They have started processing him through the criminal justice system. Is the one evading, process. So there's nothing the president can do, even if the president likes Yahaya Bello and he wants to do so much to help him. There's little he can do until that process has been completed. Whether he's found innocent or guilty, if he's found guilty, the president has the prerogative of mercy to pardon him, and he may choose not to do that, because, again, he will be conscious of what people would think in relation to his credential, anti-corruption credential. So we are in a situation where we are likely going to see more drama like this coming up. Kogi State House of Assembly, we have now seen Kogi women. At a point, we'll see Kogi men, we'll see Kogi youths, Kogi babies, and all of them, asking, begging the Mr. President to intervene. There's nothing he can do. There's a federal court warrant. He has to go and face his case in Abuja.
Let me just be a very ignorant person here now. You talked about the fact that the security detail of the governor will not allow any arrest when the governor is on, because he's the chief security officer of his state. But the president is the chief security officer of the entire nation. Can there be nothing he can do to make sure that the security, even the security detail of the governor, complies with the law?
Yes, the president cannot do anything about the situation currently. It's up to the Federal High Court. If currently EFCC is saying that they do not know his location, we all now know that it's not only in Kogi State, they have now admitted that he was either, to evade arrest from the Kogi governor's house in Abuja by Ododo. So we know obviously his last point of sight is with Ododo. So we know where he is somehow. Now, it's up to the Federal High Court. The Federal High Court cannot lift the governor's immunity because it's a constitutional matter. But it is up to the Federal High Court to take further steps, to apprehend. What the court can do is to issue another order that he must be arrested anywhere he's seen, because he has to appear in court. There's a warrant of arrest, had for him. Interpol have been informed of the situation. The problem is with the governor enjoying immunity. That itself is an abuse of office. But we have a very compliant Kogi State House of Assembly, which is not likely going to move against the governor. The only option the federal government has is to declare a state of emergency in Kogi with a view to be able to get the governor to step aside and arrest him. But again, the conditions for state of emergency does not exist in Kogi. There is no total breakdown of law and order. So the federal government cannot do that. So we are in a dilemma. We are in an uncharted territory where an accused person is being protected, by somebody with immunity. And therefore, how will the court or the law enforcement agencies proceed with this? We don't know. One thing which is clear is that the IG and the director of DSS can withdraw the personnel attached to the governor. Again, that may not be constitutional, given the fact that the governor's life will be at risk. Within that short period, with a view to arrest Yahaya Bello. So it's a very complex situation. We are in an uncharted waters. How this will be negotiated, depends on the reaction of the Federal High Court in Abuja.
Okay. Well, we'll stay and see what happens, how it will unravel, and we just hope that, everybody just stand for what is right. I think that's the only thing you owe your conscience. Just stand for what is right. And we hope that corruption, things like this, where it now becomes a cycle of governors, getting another person in place to ensure that they're being protected, having immunity, even when you've done things that are unconstitutional. We hope that we just have a system that works for all, and everybody will be all right at the end of the day. All right, thank you, Biodun, for coming. Thank you. It's always a pleasure having you on our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
As always.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so we're speaking with Biodun Showomi. He's a public affairs analyst, and we've just been looking at what's happening in Kogi State with women protesting, saying that the EFCC is witch hunting the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. We'll continue to look at the story, how it unravels, and bring you more updates on that. All right, that's it for our show today. Thank you so much for having the breakfast with us. My name is Rome Paulson.
And I am Nyamgul Agaji. Thank you for being there.
Have a wonderful day. Good morning.
ṣẹ́gun àrùn gbogbo. Ìmọ́tótó ló lè ṣẹ́gun àrùn gbogbo.
Cholera is defined as an infectious disease that is caused by ingestion of food and water contaminated with the bacterium Vibrio cholerae. It usually occurs as diarrhea, dehydration, and may lead to death if left untreated. Cholera was first discovered in 1854 by an Italian physician, Philip Pacini, during an outbreak in Florence, Italy. Also, record shows that cholera was detected by Robert Koch, a physician and microbiologist in India in 1883. In Nigeria, since its first appearance in 1972, intermittent outbreaks have been occurring. The later part of 2010 was marked with a widespread in the northern part of Nigeria, spreading to the other parts, and involving approximately 3,000 cases and 781 deaths. Unlike many other infectious diseases, cholera persists as a huge public health problem worldwide, even where there are accessible and effective methods for its prevention and treatment. The main reasons for its persistence are socioeconomic, since cholera thrives in unhygienic conditions and environments with a reputation of already fragile sanitation, especially in overcrowded areas. The major symptoms of cholera are diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, dehydration, muscle cramps, and shock. To prevent being infected with cholera, you should provide safe water, basic sanitation, and maintain adequate hygiene practices. If infected, the first aid treatment to assist the sufferer, if medical professionals are not readily available, is to get oral rehydration solution to replace lost fluids and electrolytes. Without rehydration, approximately half of the people infected with cholera will die. Severe cases need rapid treatments with intravenous fluids and antibiotics, which are to be recommended and administered by medical experts. There is currently an increase of cholera outbreak in Nigeria, and the Lagos State government declared a cholera outbreak on the 9th of June 2024. 3 suspected cases of cholera have been reported respectively in neighbouring Oyo and Ogun states. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, reported that as of 11th of June 2024, 1,141 suspected cholera cases had been recorded across 30 states in Nigeria, including Bayelsa, Lagos, Abia, Cross River, Delta, and Imo, with some situated further north, Katsina, Nasarawa, and Zamfara states. United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, says Nigeria must prevent spread in schools. With the intervention of all relevant bodies, individuals also have a relevant role to play. Prevention is better and cheaper than cure. Here are a few prevention tips. Drink and use safe water. Flush or bury poop. Wash and peel raw fruits with clean hands. Also, cook food.
Hello and welcome. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. This is the News Brief. Minister of Defense Mohamed Badaru has emphasized the country's commitment to international peace and security, stating that since its first deployment in the Congo in 1960, Nigeria has contributed to 41 peacekeeping missions globally. He also highlighted the deployment of over 200,000 Nigerian troops in UN operations Badru called for reform of the UN Security Council to ensure Africa is represented with permanent seats, arguing that this would enhance global stability.
From 1960 in Congo, we have been in 41 different United Nations missions to provide security across the world. Based on that background and the effort of Africa, we also call on the United Nations to reform the United Nations Security Council so that Africa can have a permanent seat. It is time, we deserve it, for justice and for equity and for inclusion.
The Federal Executive Council has established a disaster relief fund to ensure swift and efficient response to disasters nationwide. The fund will fund relief and recovery efforts, streamlining support for communities affected by floods, fires, and other emergencies. The fund will source finances from government and private sector players. A technical committee has been constituted to reassess dams, particularly the Alau Dam in Maiduguri, Borno State. The Alau Dam collapsed 2 weeks ago, causing floods in Borno, displacing over 1 million residents and resulting in 30 casualties. The fund will be chaired by the Minister of Water Resources, Professor Joseph Utsev. President Bola Tinubu has directed security and law enforcement agencies, including the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, the Nigeria Customs Service, NCS, the Nigeria Police Force, NPF, and the Nigerian Ports Authority, NPA, to intensify efforts in cracking down on individuals in possession of stolen vehicles. This is as the government said it will continue to work with its international partners to ensure that cyber criminals and organized crime groups involved in transnational car thefts are deprived of the benefits of their illegal activities. President Tinubu, in a statement by his Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, noted that one of the most effective tools available to law enforcement agencies is depriving criminals of the proceeds from their illicit activities. He acknowledged the recent handover of 53 vehicles and $180,300 by the EFCC to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, on behalf of 2 Canadian citizens who were victims of cybercrimes perpetrated by Nigerian nationals. While expressing concern over the involvement of transnational organized criminal groups in exporting stolen vehicles to Nigeria, President Tinubu commended the Commission for collaborating with partners to ensure a coordinated and professional response to this menace. Asuai Godalu, the People's Democratic Party candidate for the Edo State governorship election, has accused the party of stealing his mandate and criticized the subversion of voters' will. He expressed gratitude to the people for their support throughout his campaign.
To all our beloved supporters, we thank you for believing in this vision, for your countless hours of dedication, and for every conversation you've had with people about this cause. Together, we ran a great campaign, and your overwhelming support was evident in the ballots before our progress was unjustly halted on September 21st, 2024 by people who do not mean well for you or for our state. That day will forever be etched in our history as one of our darkest moments, marked by the brazen theft of our mandate and the shameful subversion of the will of the people. Yet, in the face of this challenge, we must not be discouraged. The illusory triumph of evil over good is only temporary. Our journey towards a prosperous Edo State does not end here. It is just beginning. Let us remain engaged, committed, and united in our collective resolve to create a pathway for prosperity for all in Edo State. You did not abandon me during our campaign, and I promise you, by the grace of God Almighty, that as we face a daunting and uncertain future together, I will not abandon.
The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has officially rejected the Edo State governorship election results announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission. PDP Acting National Chairman Umar Damagum called on Nigerians to support the party's rejection of the election results, claiming that the PDP candidate Ighodalo was the legitimate winner and that the election did not meet the necessary democratic standards.
Nigerians and the world watch in horror as the APC compromised security operatives and thugs unleashed terror, harassed, arrested, and detained PDP members and supporters, forced siege mentality before and on election day, and paved the way for its agents and procured INEC officials to manipulate the ballot process, substitute genuine results from the polling units with fictitious figures, and transfer the victory clearly won by our candidate, Asue Ighodalo, to the defeated APC candidate. The 2024 Edo State governorship election, which was barefacedly compromised by the APC in collusion with unpatriotic security operatives and heavily procured INEC officials who viciously trampled on the votes of the people in defiance of the law and total disregard to the sovereign will of the people of Edo State.
In the meantime, the Labour Party candidate in the 21 September governorship election in Edo State, Olumide Akpata, on Monday expressed shock at the electorate's willingness to sell their votes, noting that the transactional nature of the poll was antithetical to democratic norms. Akpata finished third in the election with 22,763 votes, while APC's Monday Okpebholo secured first place with 291,667 votes. Asue Ighodalo of the PDP was second with 247,274 votes. Addressing journalists at a press briefing in Benin, Akpata said that Saturday's exercise was not an election but a transaction enabled by both those who chose to abstain, allowing the two dominant parties to buy a significant majority of the limited votes cast, and those who participated and willingly sold their votes.
A troubling theme emerged as the day unfolded. A widespread vote-buying scheme by both the APC and the PDP. As attested to by Yaga Africa, a leading civil society organization and domestic observer group, our sacred electoral process was reduced to a commodities market, a bidding war for votes. This practice was no less damaging. It was no less damaging than outright ballot box stuffing. And it has effectively disenfranchised the people of Edo State. Let us be clear. What transpired on the 21st of September was not an election, but a transaction. It was enabled by those who chose to stay away, making it easier for the two dominant parties to afford a significant majority of the few votes on offer.
President Bola Tinubu has congratulated Senator Monday Okpebholo, the All Progressives Congress APC candidate in Saturday's Edo State governorship election, on his victory at the polls. The president, through a statement by Bayo Ononuga, his media aide, commended APC national leaders, Edo State leaders, and party governors for working hard to achieve the victory. He said the victory testified to the people's support for the ruling party, its progressive ideals, its economic re-engineering program, and its commitment to improving the lives of Nigerians. He urged Senator Okpebholo not to gloat over his victory, but to see it as a challenging call to service. He encouraged him to demonstrate magnanimity by reaching out to his political rivals and uniting the people of Edo State to ensure its development. President Tinubu also praised other candidates who participated in the election for their contributions to advancing Nigeria's democracy, saying peaceful political protests such as the one on Saturday portray Nigeria as a stable democracy. The president urged all those aggrieved by the election outcome to seek redress through the legal channels. 6 people were arrested for electoral offenses during the Edo governorship election. The DIG in charge, Frank Ba, stated that a security strategy was being implemented to prevent post-election tension. He thanked the people of the Edo state for their high sense of humility and expressed satisfaction.
We have a total of 6 arrests. That's a summary. We expect this number to shoot up in the course of investigations. We also recovered a total number of 4 weapons of different makes, a total number of 58 voters' cards that were in unlawful possession of a suspect were recovered, some stolen or illicitly acquired beavers machines were equally recovered. Now that the elections are over, we have activated our post-election strategies. We are commencing massive patrols of the state. We are putting in place a strategy that will give rise to high visibility policing. We'll be conducting confidence building patrols, show of force, and the protection of all critical access of the state. We will pay very special attention to public spaces. We will pay very special attention to INEC facilities and government facilities.
The Edo State governorship election on September 21, 2024 was a result of a crisis between the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and Governor Godwin Obaseki. The election saw Senator Monday Okpebholo of the All Progressives Congress, APC, win 11 local government areas with a total vote cast of 291,667, defeating his closest opponent, Dr. Asue Godalo of the PDP. Olumide Akpata of the Labour Party, LP, emerged third. Other 15 political parties also received votes. The pattern of votes indicated that the people voted against the actions of Governor Obaseki.
Lack of development, as I said. Again, disagreement with the traditional councils, lack of respect for them. If you go outside there, you can't really pinpoint or identify particular achievement by this government.
The issue Edo have always had is with the present incumbent governor, Godwin Obaseki, particularly the Benin people, whom he has offended, if not by anything, by the misunderstanding he had with the Palace of the Oba of Benin. That is one institution that an average original Benin man does not play with. It's like playing with the tentacle of a man. There is no average Benin man that will see how the governor disrespects the palace.
Well, they voted for a man where them sabi, somebody that they know. You know, somebody with a lot of doings, let me use popular parlance. You know, somebody, even before he became a politician and a senator, you know, has been doing a lot of things in his community, surrounding communities, in his local government, in his senatorial district, and in the state. You know, so he was somebody that they can relate to, a common person, a simple person. You know, not somebody who carried himself very high. He's not a mounty somebody. He's not a loquacious person. He's not somebody who talks too much. You know, practical, simple, focused individual.
The Center for Democracy and Development, CDD West Africa Election Analysis Center, EAC, has encouraged the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to leverage the positive elements identified during the recent Edo governorship election held on September 21. This recommendation was made during a post-election briefing in Abuja on Monday, where the CDD EAC presented its findings as an independent observer group comprising 70 trained and accredited observers who monitored various locations throughout Edo State, including efforts to counter disinformation. The report praised INEC for its management of the election, particularly highlighting the effectiveness of the Bimodal Voter Accreditation System, BVAS, and the INEC Result Viewing Portal, IREV.
Despite the late start in several polling units, the voting process went on smoothly. Furthermore, notwithstanding the political tension due mainly to the identity-driven rhetoric and disinformation that characterized the electioneering campaign, the voting process on election day was largely peaceful. Despite 87% of PVCs having been collected, turnout was a paltry 25%. INEC should carefully review uploads on IREV against the announced results, and where there are discrepancies, INEC should take necessary remedial action.
Additionally, the report noted occurrences of overvoting at several major polling stations, particularly in Edo North, with some instances also observed in parts of Edo Central and South. It provided several significant recommendations aimed at assisting INEC in preparation for the upcoming Ondo State governorship elections scheduled for November 16. Professor Adele Jinadu, chairman of the CDD-EAC, attributed the challenges facing the electoral process in Nigeria to the intense desire of politicians to win at any cost.
I think there are questions, definitely questions, about the discrepancy between what was uploaded and what was finally recorded. But technology can be manipulated, and we need to be very, very alert that it is not the answer. People find ways of going around it. At the root of all of this is the attitude of our political leaders, the political class, in terms of going out to undermine the process. And I think we need to shift our focus towards that and seeing how we should be able to make also the political leaders accountable to us in terms of how they view elections. We cannot keep on going on like this.
The CDD advocates for ongoing initiatives in voter education and media literacy to empower citizens regarding their rights in future elections. Thousands of victims of the ongoing demolition exercise by the Oyo State government, led by Seyi Makinde and the African Action Congress AAC, are holding a massive protest in Ibadan. The protesters stormed the state government secretariat in Agodi, shouting "No more corridor," to express their dissatisfaction over the planned construction of a corridor road. The demolition, aiming to acquire 500 meters of land for the Ibadan Secular Roads project, has been criticized as excessive and inhumane. The affected residents have called on the Oyo State House of Assembly, the Olubadan of Ibadan, and other stakeholders to intervene and hold the governor accountable for his actions. A grassroots empowerment through solar marketing initiative aims to create economic opportunities for Nigerians and improve their standard of living. The initiative also seeks to promote solar manufacturing as a viable opportunity for African youths. During a press conference in Lagos, the initiative convener, Prince Dr. Darlington Alozie, stated that the program's goals are to generate employment for young individuals and provide an alternative energy source for local communities. Dr. Alozie emphasized his commitment to supporting Nigeria's efforts to alleviate poverty and ensure citizens have access to gainful employment.
Solar business in Nigeria is on the high rise, and Africa is on the high rise, and this is the place we have a huge market for it. Every solar company is pushing their product to us, trying to make us buy, but unaffordable. And this is a concern to me. Sun has been given to us as a gift by God, and solar is a research for people. Solar devices are research as a result of this. Their product has already researched in the past. All the nations in Africa are developing faster, and our country, Nigeria, we have the good number of new market to push everything we sell, we produce here to the world. We have our brothers in the world, in America, in UK, they are all pushing it from there, and we are here unemployed. So we need to create a business that has a network that connects every other Nigerian anywhere they are to have been empowered. Now, due to these inventions, we lack the technological advance project or techniques to push Nigerians to understand most efficacies of solar productivity and how to make solar, align solar with other businesses that we see. So we see solar as an alien business. We see solar business as a business of the rich man. We see solar as an invention of the elites. We see these solar devices as something that is not affordable, whereas it's affordable.
Dr. Alozie urged the federal government to embrace solar innovation, position the country as a center for business production in this sector. He expressed confidence that this vision would be realized in collaboration with his international partners.
So this organization, the Solar Marketing Organization, will take effect with price controlling of solar materials and products, checks of standard productions of solar devices. Some people using solar today are criticizing solar. Say, oh, I've used it, it didn't help me. It's because of substandard production qualities. So Nigerian government is not paying attention to this industry, and that is why I've come to make it an empowerment program so we can have a sector where we can independently manufacture, produce, train, and sell solar to us and to our people and to other parts of the world. If we become exporters of solar products in Nigeria, we have the raw materials to do that.
From other parts of Africa, Tunisians have staged a protest against President Kais Saied, accusing him of reinforcing authoritarian rule and suppressing political competition. The protest follows a bill proposed by lawmakers to remove the administrative court's powers to adjudicate electoral disputes, which critics argue would discredit the upcoming election and allow Saied to secure another term. The Electoral Commission rejected a court ruling reinstating 3 presidential candidates earlier this month, a move critics claim is another example of Said's suppressing competition. Political tension in Tunisia have been high since 2021, with the opposition calling this move a coup. Outside Africa, the Israeli military has warned southern Lebanon residents to evacuate homes and buildings where Hezbollah stores weapons, stating it is carrying out extensive strikes against the militant group. The warning comes after Hezbollah launched 150 rockets, missiles, and drones into northern Israel in retaliation for strikes that killed a top commander and dozens of fighters. The escalating strikes and counterstrikes have raised fears of an all-out war, while Israel is still battling Palestinian Hamas in Gaza and trying to return hostages. Hezbollah has vowed to continue its strikes in solidarity with the Palestinians and Hamas. In business news, the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, says the price of 12.5 kilograms of liquefied petroleum gas LPG, better known as cooking gas, increased by 69.15% in 1 year. In its latest LPG cooking gas price watch report for August 2024, the NBS said Nigerians paid an average price of 15,552 Naira 56 kobo for 12.5 kg cylinder of cooking gas in the month under review, compared to the 9,194 Naira 41 kobo in August 2023. According to the report, the average price for refilling a 12.5 kg of cooking gas increased from 14,261 Naira 57 kobo in July to 15,552 Naira 56 kobo in August, representing a 9.05% month-on-month uptick. Presenting a state profile analysis, the data body said Rivers recorded the highest average retail price for refilling a 12.5 kg cooking gas cylinder at 17,086 Naira 36 kobo, followed by Cross River with 17,050 Naira, and Abia State 17,012 Naira 52 kobo. In entertainment news, Sean Diddy Combs' music has seen a surge in streams following his recent arrest on sex trafficking and racketeering charges. According to industry data, the mogul's music saw an average of 18.3% more on-demand streams during the week of his arrest compared to the previous week. Music business experts attribute this surge to public curiosity and the anonymization of streaming. They suggest that people may be searching for more information about their artists and their music in light of the allegations, while the anonymity of streaming platforms allows for easier access to their contact without the stigma of public scrutiny. The indictment against Combs details allegations of abuse and coercion against women dating back to 2008. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges. And that's the news brief. For more stories, please follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. You can also view us from Limex on limex.tv and Glow TV apps anywhere in the world. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. Thank you for being there.
I will take you through this amazingness today.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on Plus TV Africa. Now, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, has expressed concern that the government's lack of commitment to implementing policies has resulted in the country's manufacturing sector operating at below 50% of its installed capacity. The Director General of MAN, Segun Ajayi-Kado, said this during the 2024 Access Corporate Forum held in Lagos. It pointed out that while successive administrations have proclaimed their intentions to enhance domestic production, they have not demonstrated sufficient interest in fostering the growth of the manufacturing sector. Ajayi-Kado highlighted that the sector's development has been hindered either by the government's insufficient commitment to executing policies or by the sector being deprioritized in favor of other areas. Additionally, at the event, Aliko Dangote, president of Dangote Group, underscored the importance of government support for local manufacturing, asserting that this approach is more effective than seeking foreign investments abroad. Dangote further emphasized the necessity for the federal government to provide substantial support to small business in the country to help them withstand the challenges posed by the influx of foreign products. We will keep our eye on this development on the show today. Welcome to Business Insight on Plus TV Africa. I am Justin Akadonia. All right, before we get into the conversation, at a recent two-day workshop in Lagos, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, outlined ambitious green hydrogen production targets as part of its renewable energy strategy. By 2030, ECOWAS aims to produce 0.5 million tons of green hydrogen annually, scaling up to 10 million tons by 2050. Details now.
The building workshop focused on exploring the potential of green hydrogen in the region. The workshop equipped participants with the necessary knowledge and skills to harness the benefits of green hydrogen in addressing energy challenges and promoting economic growth in West Africa. Dr. Bruno Korgo, the regional coordinator for renewable energy and green hydrogen at the West African Science Service Center on Climate Change and Adapted Land Use, WASCA, strongly believes the region has immense potential in terms of renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and hydrogen.
Green hydrogen is today more and more considered in all the energy strategies all over the world as a vector for decarbonizing a lot of sectors across the world. You can cite the sector of industrial sectors, steel industry, cement, refinery, transport, energy, and so on. So this unique energy vector is today perceived as the energy of future. As you know, there are a lot of debates regarding climate change and a lot of commitments of almost all the states of the world to go for decarbonizing their sectors in order to fulfill our climate agenda.
Hyacinth Elayo, Sustainable Energy Policy Officer at ECRI, stated that the ECOWAS region has adopted ambitious targets for green hydrogen production as part of the organization's regional policy and strategy framework.
ECOWAS policymakers, our role is to create an enabling environment for investments. But the private sector are really the engine and the growth drivers. They are our soldiers on the field, and our objective basically for this workshop is to ensure that we're able to interact with them, especially the key industries that are present here. We have key capital of industry here in hard-to-abate sectors, cement, refineries, steel, transport. The end users of green hydrogen. We want them to actually champion this policy and help develop investment projects that can drive green hydrogen in the ECOWAS region.
Alhassan Dantata, the Executive Vice Chairman of Synergy Infrastructure Development and Investment Limited, SIDRL, stated that a green hydrogen is a world final option to transition to clean energy.
We have the sun
365 days in a year. Okay, we have the wind, because coming from the Sahara, we have the northeast trade winds that always keep the windmills turning 24/7. So we've got no excuse. We should be the front runners of green hydrogen. That's the bottom line. Africa should be able to export power through submarine cables, just like we're importing bandwidth from Europe. We should be giving them power because we have got the sun, we've got the wind, and we've got the water. It's just our will. Do you have the political will? Do you have the right mindset? Can we collaborate?
While declaring the workshop open, Temitokwe Dino, the Assistant Director of the Federal Ministry of Power, describes the regional journey towards a sustainable and green future as a collective effort. Love Oyeduku, Plus TV News.
All right, welcome back from that report. The federal government has advised manufacturers to continue dialoguing with the Central Bank of Nigeria to resolve the unsettled foreign exchange forward transaction claims. Earlier this year, the CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso announced that all valid outstanding FX backlog claims had been settled. However, he noted that about $2.4 billion in FX transactions could not be settled because they were unverified. Now, MAN, that's the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, has raised objections to the Apex Bank's claim of unverified transactions, stating that many manufacturers have been affected by the yet unresolved FX backlog. In response, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, advised MAN and other affected parties to continue dialoguing with the CBN to resolve the matter. I have public affairs analyst now, Mustafa Iwinla, joining me for more conversation on this issue. Thanks for joining me, Mustafa, on Business Insight.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, it is indeed our pleasure. Let's talk about manufacturing now, and let's talk about government policy and execution or lack of it. And the Manufacturers Association is in the news and is saying that it is actually dropping their capacity to about 50%. You know, for instance, there have been several policies since the outset of this administration, with the forex policies, with the inflation, with the Naira float and all of that. And the manufacturing industry is one sector that has been completely affected. There's even the issues of unresolved FX backlog to taxation, double taxation, and manufacturers are not really getting the right environment to thrive now. So what are the concerns that I read for you?
So clearly our manufacturing sector is currently facing quite a number of challenges, and that's why we've seen a lot of manufacturers in recent times lamenting on several hurdles and several challenges they're going through. But again, for me, I think that these challenges has affected their growth and also affected their development, and it's very sad because whether we like it or not, the manufacturing industry is a sector that we should not take with levity. The manufacturing sector, I mean, is kind of the engine room of this country, and whether we like it or not, we must make that sector very strong and viable. According to Aliko Dangote, in one of his recent outings, the success of our local industries or local investments or manufacturers is going to be the overall success in a way to attract foreign investors. So if our local manufacturing industries are not doing well, that is definitely a red flag for foreign investors. And that's why we keep having a lot of industry-based manufacturers lamenting. So what I think, our problems is very inherent. And the honest truth is, if you look at our economy or Nigeria as a country, we have quite a number of challenges. That, that's why even the DG of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is also complaining, because for that sector to be performing less than 50% of their installed capacity is definitely not a good pass mark for them. And that tells us that something has to be done. So that brings us to one of the why I think that the government has to do something. For example, let's even take some of the challenges as a focal point of our discussion today. If you look at our power sector, our power sector is a very integral part of any economy that will prosper. And if you look at the power supply deficiency, that's a problem. That's one of the reasons why industries are not doing so well. Manufacturers are performing below expectations. In a country where we've been facing a lot of issues with our energy sector. Imagine if you are running a pure water factory in this country now, and maybe you've tried to have a gross income of about 1 million naira monthly. I can tell you that out of that 1 million naira, you will probably spend about 70 or 60% on energy, on power. So at the end of the day, when these manufacturers, produce, it is very difficult for them to even have profit because they are running at a loss. So that's why we've continued to see a lot of companies exiting the country. Few years back, we used to have a company called Dunlop, so they had to relocate to Ghana because of lack of power in Nigeria. So these are issues. Another very critical issue that we must also, that is also one of the key challenges that these manufacturers are going through is instability in Forex. A lot instability in Forex, even our CBN rate, our CBN bank that keeps increasing interest rate every other time. So because our naira has been so devalued, so it's difficult for them to even keep up. So imagine a manufacturer that got a loan from CBN when dollar was say 700 naira to a naira, and now a dollar now is almost 1,400 or 1,300. So how is that manufacturer going to break even? So definitely it's going to be running at a loss, because as at the time the manufacturer got a loan from CBN, dollar was 700 naira now, but now dollar is 1,400, 1,300 in some cases. So those are issues. So all this instability in Forex is a huge problem. And another very critical problem is infrastructure deficits. I'll tell you, so one of the key challenges these our manufacturers go through is that the government has not provided, aside from the policy that is shaky, these are very critical problems that these people go through.
Okay.
A country where we have infrastructure deficits, we have no roads, we have no potable water. So a manufacturer will look for money to build a structure for him to run his operations. A manufacturer will build the roads to his own factory. A manufacturer will provide his own transformer to run his own factory. Yes. In a country where you provide your own transformer and PSCN or NEPA or whatever they call themselves will tell you that after you purchase the transformer, you have to write a letter to transfer the ownership of that transformer to the government before it's being commissioned. So all these are problems. And I think that
they should be addressed.
The government of the day needs to address the issue, because if care is not taken, we will continue to be import dependent. And like Dangote has said, that means that we'll continue to import poverty, because a country that is import dependent is automatically importing poverty.
But over time, the federal government will come out and say that it has plans and policies tailored towards boosting the manufacturing sector, and over time it has talked about its industrial development and growth plans several times. But at the end of the day, it's as though they don't carry it to the letter, or they I don't know the word to use right now. They seem to not really know the direction to go, because they come up with a policy today, the next day it is being changed. For instance, now we know you talked about the Forex policy now and how the naira was floated since last year, and over time Nigerians have been bearing the brunt. Even businesses have been shutting down, that you have like alluded to. Let's come to our energy sector too. There's been so much talk back and forth as regards the petroleum downstream sector. Dangote, for instance, came to do a big one, a major stake in it, and yet it's as though government's policies or lack of it is actually affecting it. It's like the federal government just says something today and the next day it is backtracking, or it has we don't have the right economic managers to manage the economy right in the country.
So the honest truth is, I think we have all the policies in place in this country.
We're not carrying it to the letter.
But the honest truth is, lack of the government's commitment to execute those policies is one of the issues we're having. And also, I also think that there are some elements in those sectors that are also, trying to scuffle a lot of efforts in those, in the process of implementing those policies. So if you ask me, our energy sector, we've seen a lot of issues that has played out in the past few months. And we have constantly continued to say that, no, these issues must stop. All of us would have thought that Dangote came as a messiah to reduce the cost of our pump price for fuel. But we have seen that dream is not going to come alive anytime soon.
At all.
So let me now tell you, so the biggest problem our manufacturing sector is facing is regulatory orders. Naturally, anybody who has invested so much in a business would expect that
you get returns.
You will get returns and you will make reasonable profits. But most of these manufacturing industries are running at a deficit. So it's difficult to even keep up. That's why to even pay workers, to even keep up with bills, overheads, cost of production. So in a country where the cost of production of average manufacturer is always higher than the sales price. So naturally, if you produce this phone for 1,000 naira, so you're naturally expected to sell for 1,500 or 1,300 or maybe 200. But in a country where people produce for 1,000 naira and sell for 800 naira, that's the end of the business. That's the beginning and the end of those manufacturing. And that's what everybody's going through. So they are just trying to get by the day, and it's difficult. Another very key issue is the nature of our manufacturing industry. There's a lot of bureaucracy in that sector. In a country where, for somebody that wants to become a manufacturer, for you to get NAFDAC registration number, usually they'll tell you that it takes 90 days. So I think for food products, it takes 90 days. For drugs, for food that has to do with drugs, it takes 120 days. But I tell you, in real sense, those are good to see on paper. But if in real sense, it takes longer period than that. Because you see that a lot of bureaucracy in that sector, even when you have all your documentations correctly, if you don't follow their process within their internal organization, if you don't cut corners, you might not even get that approval. Because somebody somewhere is expecting you to lobby them before they do the right thing. So there's corruption in probably almost all our sectors, and these are the issues. So this is ultimately creating a widespread apathy. People are not even willing to even say they want to come into that sector, because before you even start it, you're already dead. So those are the issues. So I think that the bureaucracy should also stop. Government must create an enabling environment for these manufacturers or even prospective manufacturers to come in. If you want to know what even foreign investors go through to start a business in this country, a lot of irregularities. These people they have identified some opportunities, and in that way they want to come and bring solutions. But for them to even set up those businesses, they are made to go through rigorous processes that ends up discouraging them. Do you even want to know that there are 4 top oil and gas firms in this country now that are even thinking of exiting this country as we speak, because of all these issues, back and forth and all that. But they haven't been able to achieve that goal because of regulatory orders too. But I tell you, Nigeria is supposed to be one of the friendliest country to do business, because we have the numbers. Nigeria is the biggest country in Africa in terms of numbers. So we're not big. So in terms of GDP, we're not big anymore. I've said it on this platform that a lot of countries has overtaken Nigeria. Look, South Africa has overtook Nigeria from the country with the biggest GDP in the world, with a GDP of over $473 billion US. Nigeria, some years ago, we used to have a GDP of, in 2022, our GDP used to be over $400 billion US. Now our GDP is running at almost $253 billion US. So we're declining. So that's why I'm saying that anybody that calls Nigeria a giant of Africa, for me, I find it very laughable. Very, very laughable. So I think we need to take back our glory again. We need to come back to that position. We have the largest number in terms of people, in terms of resources, in terms of even natural resources. A lot of these countries doing better than us now do not even have any. Kenya is a country of about 50 million people. I do not think that Kenya has any natural resources. They don't have crude oil.
As much as we do.
They don't have as much as we do, and they are doing better than us. Kenya is a country that I was in Kenya at one point, 24-hour stable power supply. And that's why manufacturers keep lamenting that a country that does not have constant 24 hours power supply, a country where people still pay for power, only the rich can have 24 hours power, while the poor will be in darkness. It's a problem.
All right.
The power should be equal in different parts of the country. Different, regardless of your class. So you don't have to pay. You should not have to pay any premium to have 24 hours power.
Right.
So those are the issues.
Okay, fine. Another issue that manufacturers usually complain about over time is the issue of multiple taxation, specifically for small, medium-scale businesses who are into production and the manufacturing. In as much as there has been a presidential task force, a committee, for fiscal reforms and taxation, and they've said as much as possible they are trying to reduce the number of taxes Nigerians pay. But let's really talk about this taxation, because if it's not taxation based on what they are importing, excise duty, they are paying other taxes even within the country just to get the raw materials, into their own firms and their own, companies to do this production. So how do we address this issue of multiple taxation in the country?
Right. So, but the honest truth is, it is very normal as a business owner or even individual to pay tax.
Yes.
Because that's
the multiple taxation.
Yes. So I get your point. So that, but that's the money the government uses to build
develop the country. Yes.
To develop the country. But in a country where people are taxed in multiple cases and
we're not even seeing the
results of the infrastructure. I was listening to a video of Aliko Dangote just a few minutes ago, and he was saying that the tax he paid last year as the company, Dangote Refinery, the tax he paid is more than the tax the own commercial banks in Nigeria paid for the whole of last year. That's to tell you, if Dangote Refinery or Dangote Group of Company as a company is paying tax that is even more than all the banks in Nigeria combined together in a year, that tells you that the manufacturers are actually the engine room of this country.
True.
And that tells you that the government only just needs to give them some support and enabling environment to make them, we can have more Aliko Dangotes in the industry, in building refineries. We can have more Aliko Dangote, producing rice, producing cement. Dangote's cement is exported as much as almost all the parts of African countries for production and for use. And those are the kind of energy we should be getting. But in a country where they pay huge tax and they don't see the results, is the problem. Because multiple taxation will drastically kill these businesses. It will kill them. And so I think that the government also needs to, do something in that area too. These manufacturers are just struggling. They are just trying to get by hook or by crook. But the honest truth is, they just need something in an environment that will give them something very simple to work with.
All right.
And the government needs to do something better on that.
So your last words on this as we round off from the show.
So my last words will be to the government, because whether we like it or not, everything we do as a country, it rises and falls on the government. So I think the government needs to just give manufacturers an enabling environment to work.
Yeah.
We must grow Nigeria again, and a country that depends so much on importation will not grow. We must have a country where we start to produce all our own goods, even to the smallest toothpick. We must start to produce it. That's how we can move forward as a country.
All right, the federal government needs to do so much more to enhance production and manufacturing. That's the only way we can grow our economy and, of course, not be so dependent on foreign made product. I want to say a very big thank you to you, Mustafa Iwinla, for your time on the show this morning. I do appreciate it. All right, Mustafa Iwinla is a public affairs analyst, and he joined me to look at the issues in the manufacturing sector and what the government needs to do to ensure an enabling playing ground so that manufacturers can actually indeed thrive. That's the size of the show for today. My name is Justin Akadonye. Many thanks for being there.
I will take you through this amazing lesson today.
Welcome to Cross Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Sometimes when we see celebrities either on social media, television, or in person, we assume they have it all together, but we forget that they're also human. Well,
here are some of the low points of some of your favorite celebrities.
as a young person growing up, I have had to sell akamu on my head. You know, yeah, on a tray. You go like in the morning, like very early in the morning before I go to school. Buy akamu, you know. That's why you should never underrate anyone, no matter the situation. You see them or you find them. When I go to UK and had to play at the Rio Festival Hall with Miriam Makeba, then, oh my God, I'm like, that's Akamu selling girl that was selling Akamu. You know, so be inspired, follow your dream, follow your heart, sit back and say, what is my passion in life? What can I do to better the world? And before you know it, you're already making an impact.
When I came to Lagos here after school, I remembered I entered what is called 911. 911 is a kind of lorry found then that they will load Gary, load in at the back. Then in between the driver and the load, we have what is called second class. And that is where I sat. And could you believe that by the time I got to Ido and I came down, my box, my shoe, because it took us 3 days from Bender, from Midwest to Lagos, all my loads were loaded. You see, when you pass through such, and when you become somebody, you look back and you look at what people are going through, it makes you to help others.
When I decided to be an apprentice photographer, we were living in Ebutimeta, and I would trek, you know, from Ebutimeta into Willoughby, from Willoughby into cross the Leventis into Ido Road, past Ido railway station, go across the Kata Bridge, and then into Agbogbon, into Broad Street. And I trekked that for 1 whole year. And then finally, when I got to London, I had to be a cleaner, you know, every morning. Get out of the house by 4:30 to clean till 9 a.m. and then rush off to school. So I've done quite a lot of things like that, and I still continue to do that. And so for me, it is part of one's development. And I didn't see that I was suffering. Occasionally, you know, you want to stop. You have cried many times. I've failed many times, but I've just got up. I get up again. A lot of people, I enjoy goodwill of some people who pull me up again and help me on my feet, and then I go on.
I finished that film and I became very famous. As young as I was, I didn't even know what it was. Film, everybody would just be calling me over. I'm like, what's wrong? What's going on? When the film was all over the place, so I couldn't go to the market, and I used to go to the market a lot, you know, to go and buy all these second-hand, all these second-hand outfits, and then there was one day I went to the market with a couple of my friends, and I just realized that I just couldn't buy these things anymore, because they would tease me. The market, the people in the market, the traders will always tease me and said, so you see, they come buy Pendam Boutique, you know. So that made me realize that, oh, so if I become a star, there are a lot of things I won't be able to do, or what? So I went back and I said to myself, is this how I'm going to live my life? I won't be who I want to be. I won't be myself. And I said, no, I won't let that catch up with me. Just be who you are, no matter your craft, no matter how high you think you've become. Still be that same person that the girl next door, still the girl or the boy next door that people can always relate to.
Hello Africa, hello Nigeria. You're watching Plus TV Africa and we're reaching you live from our studios in Lagos. The program is Sports Business with Orufo Ezaga. Today we have another interesting package for you. We're going to be talking about African football in the age of globalization. What's the status of African football today? What are we doing? What have we been doing? And what we should be doing going into the future? One thing is clear, African football is being swamped from all angles, or African sports is being swamped. what do we need to do to reclaim our markets? Because we're losing jobs, we're losing income, we're losing competitiveness, and our societies are even becoming a lot more restive than it would be if we had good sports engaging our young. Joining me to talk about this, football in Africa in the age of globalization, are two very experienced sports business players. From Kenya will be Brian Bolton. He has a full grasp of what's going on, and he's also right now putting together an African Football Business Summit. He's the founder and CEO of the Football Foundation for Africa. Also with me and in the studio will be Mr. Asha Thierry Alon. He's the CEO of Africa Sport Network. And basically what his company does is to try and see how they can promote African sports to the world. Now, if you want to be part of this program, and I invite you to be a part of this program, what I'll do is keep the dial on Plus TV Africa. We're going to go on a very short break, and when we return, the business begins. You're welcome back to the program Sports Business with Orufo Ezaga. And you're watching Plus TV Africa, and we're reaching you live from our studios in Victoria Island. Joining me now from Kenya is Mr. Brian Wesela. Brian, we need to talk about what's going on with our football and what you're doing to try and build interest back in football business in Africa. And there's interest because according to a recent when IMG took over from CAF, they were later to find that there was a lot of interest in African football. As a matter of fact, quoting one of their top officials, he says, when we announced that we're official partners of CAF, we got a lot of international interest from brands. Brands were coming to say to us, how can we get involved with CAF? But that's CAF, and because AFCON is the biggest sports property on the continent. Do you get a sense that this is what can be with African club football as well?
This is possible, and we need to leverage on these, great visibility that the last AFCON gave us. And to do this, I think we need to move strategically, invest in the right places. Of course, it's easy to play around, what happened with AFCON, but still, our football ecosystem is hugely underdeveloped, and especially when it comes to club football. So it's up to us now to think, how do we leverage the popularity that African football has gained over the last couple of years and see how we can translate that to building a more sustainable African sports ecosystem. Of course, we have a huge advantage because of the population we have in Africa, the youthful population, the abundance of talent. But this is what we are naturally endowed with as a continent. But in terms of now, how do we harness these to make football and sports in general contribute to the social and economic development of the continent is where the work actually lies. And that's something we should really engage the different stakeholders from government, academia, private sector, and then those of us who are now in the sports space, in the football space, to craft a way forward for football in Africa.
Okay, you say that we should leverage on the popularity of African stars. Well, there's a bit of is it a contradiction now? Because yeah, we should leverage on that. But when the African fan sees the popular African star, he associates the person with the club he plays with in Europe. He associates him with European football. How do you think how do we work around that?
In this age of globalization, and that's why we really need to think. It's a hard work to overturn what has happened to African football because of globalization. Because in my view, globalization has affected African football in two ways. One is in labor, and secondly, it's with media. I'm sure here my friend Asha will have a lot more to say. But you see, because of globalization, people look at Africa as a labor provider or a labor exporter. So that's why you find a lot of our players, the best of them, are always moving to more developed sports economies, because here in Africa we have not invested enough already to be able to pay or to make football an economically viable endeavor for an athlete. And for that, we have what has been called the migration of labor to Europe, which has kind of had an impact on our local leagues or local clubs. Because if you're best in Europe, it means not really your second best, but what you're left behind with, it's more difficult to market. And then the other area that in which globalization has impacted African football is in media. Africa has become a heavy consumer of media from other markets, and we are paying huge fees, to get these media or to have the EPL and the La Liga and the Champions League streamed across the continent. So, in my view, we need to work on a shift so that we have more players staying in Africa. That means we have to improve the quality of our competitions, our clubs, our leagues. And two, we have to see how do we counter the media that we are bombarded with by, one, improving the quality of our own media, and two, getting the policies right so that we are able to save Africa the much needed resources, financial resources it needs, build its own sports ecosystem. So globalization is a good thing, but it also has its drawbacks. And in the case of football, it has impacted us in these two heavy ways that we need to counter. And to move forward, I think we need to change the way we interact with the more developed sports economies. So away from being a labor exporter and a media consumer, we need to attract investment, and also we need a lot of knowledge transfer. That's why we're organizing events such as the Africa Football Business Summit, really to have an African agenda, but at the same time to welcome expertise from outside to help us to grow our industry in the coming years.
Okay. Brian, I'm going to come back to you on something. For instance, and what that is, by the way, is that to grow football in Africa, to come up with the sort of quality that people talk about, that I hear people talk about, you need funding, all right? If you don't have funding, then you've got to look at a different way of getting, the audience that you're looking for, of getting the fans to be, to be better invested in their local clubs. But before I get to that, let me ask Asha. Asha, you've been in the media space, and you've heard him say the media, is a key stakeholder, right? And you know that the media can shape opinion. Media can even create the sort of interest that the public should have, right? And the African media, I think Brian alluded to that, has really, undersold African sports. In an age when people are looking around the world for properties to consume that are beyond their own properties, right? How well do you think the media is doing that? What do you think is the problem, or what are the wins for the African media in this age of globalization?
So first of all, most medias, we need to understand, they are after earning money. They are not about developing the football or developing the culture. And they will go after what brings rating. So if I'll push, if I'll stream or broadcast EPL or other major leagues, and I know that this will bring me a lot of attention, a lot of rating, therefore advertisers and so on, I'll just go and do that. That's the easiest. I just buy the feed, I will sell it off, people will watch, will earn money. To do the local production, that's much more costly, that requires an investment from the media itself. And it's a product that is still considered on the lower level in any aspect than the European leagues because of level of production, because of the level of stadiums, because of the level of the game itself. Brian said very right. So we need to develop our African style in football. We need that. Moreover, I think it's a lot of a cultural thing that if I go to the stadium and the stadium is empty and I watch it on TV and I'll see when I watch the match on TV that the stadium is empty, my level of interest will go down because there is no ambience. Now, this is a strong element, the ambience around it. Moreover, I think that the viewer at home or the standard person on the street, he wants to watch success, regardless where it's coming from, okay? And when you're watching World Cup, you will adore the teams that are successful. Which of the African teams really reached finals? Not yet. We had Morocco in the last World Cup that reached very high, but most of the African teams are getting eliminated before the finals, okay, or the last stages. That's very important. The minute that you have this very glamorous Champions League in Europe with all the big players, there is not something equivalent in Africa. There is, but it's not really followed. It's not really developed. Doesn't have the same glamour, and moreover, it's not always accessible on TV. Then it's a whole ecosystem that needs to be nourished from all sides in order to succeed.
Okay, so I get this a lot. People say that the African game is not developed enough. I understand that. It's not glitzy enough or glamorous enough. I understand that. We don't have the money that can make us develop these sorts of products. I mean, that's easy to see. So the challenge then becomes, how do we, with the resources that we have, because we can't match Europe when it comes to financial resources, for instance, or when it comes to the quality of talent. How do we as Africans then compete in the age of globalization? I'll come to you, Brian. It's like the question I asked you before, that I said I was going to come to you with. How do we then get the fans if we don't have the resources that the more popular competitors have?
I think also that's where I say policy needs to come in. Policy needs to play a role in protecting the African market. We don't have the financial resources to compete with these global properties, but we can protect our marketing by more regulation, and that's what happened in Europe. When they liberalized the media, and now they could be able to stream their matches or their sports globally. Those are things that came out of regulation. So as Africa, we also need to regulate so that we protect ourselves and be able to invest in ourselves. Because at the moment we are spending a lot on bringing these or whatever we are calling as glamorous. But I can tell you from where I sit, and I'm a big advocate, for example, of grassroots football. If we package even our grassroots football well, especially in this age of technology where we have platforms that we can use, we can have a product that can almost compete with whatever is there globally, and using media as well to tell our own unique stories, creating ecosystems that work for us. For example, my friend has just mentioned stadia and our inability to fill stadia. How come we're not rethinking the design of our stadiums? Create smaller facilities that fit well within our ecosystem, our environment, even if it's 5,000, 10,000 seaters, and fill them and create that atmosphere that we are talking about. Create a product that we can sell out there, as opposed to just us saying, the European, the Champions League is more glamorous, so that's what our media people run to. The other thing we have to look at is ownership. We need to start owning our own platforms. Even if we are saying that it's all business, I go for the most glamorous product. Once we take ownership of our own development, our own media, then we'll be able to position products that are actually working for us. We'll be able to build our own clubs. It has happened in music. Nigerian music, Afrobeat. Now we are exporting that globally. But it took that creation of something unique, something African, and a lot of patience and hard work to get to where we see our music now is. Can the same happen in football? Definitely it can. For me, watching for example, a 90-minute EPL match is just as entertaining as going somewhere in my grassroots community and watching a match featuring very raw talent. It's just that also globalization has become an issue of association. Africans want to associate as well with what they believe is glamorous at the expense of what they own. So it will take a lot of hard work, a lot of education, and I insist, policy, we have to shape policies that protect our market and help our market to grow. So we have to legislate accordingly at the Africa Union level and with our economic, our economic groupings. We need to start thinking of how do we build this sports ecosystem and link it to our own social economic development, and then we'll be able to compete globally. So it has to be multifaceted, as Asha put it. We have to engage all the stakeholders, the private sector. Where do they want to put their money? If this is the media owner, why are they putting their money in these global products at the expense of building our own? And that's the only way African sports will start, to grow. We cannot grow without protecting our market at the moment.
Okay, so Brian says some sort of protection. And we tried that in Nigeria, by the way. We tried it in 2018 or thereabout, where they said, if you had to invest in, say, the sponsorship of a European football club or the EPL or La Liga or any one of these properties, then you have to put 30% of what you are investing in that property in some sort of domestic competition. I'll tell you something, it was Nigerians that killed it. We didn't like it because we thought it would stop us from watching the EPL. Do you get? So that's on the one hand. We need protection, but we need people who have got to champion these things to see it through. That's one hand. On the other hand, you were talking about media being about, what will sell. Yeah? And maybe you're right. But the point is, what sells today can kill you tomorrow. Yeah? As in business, they say, what made you succeed today can make you fail tomorrow. We have seen a situation where over the last 30 years, Africans have spent possibly over $1 billion watching European football. Now we don't have money anymore. Everybody is struggling. So shouldn't we protect our own? Shouldn't we say, as a media organization, we owe it to ourselves to make sure that we tell our stories, like Brian said, because it's the stories that the fans actually follow. It's the stories. People, you'll be shocked. In Nigeria today, a lot of people don't even watch the matches. But they follow the results, and then that's what gets them into the social conversation. So what do you think, Asha? Do you think it's just about, do we have to get the quality right, or is the media part of getting the quality right?
So let me tell you several things. I agreed with everything that Brian said, except one single thing. He said we don't have the resources. Africa has the most, it's the continent with the most resources in the world, okay? The question is, what are we doing with those resources, okay? What policies our government is putting in place in order to ensure that every international company that comes around must do local investment on sports, culture, anything that goes, that enters under the CSR budgets, okay? If they will do that, and sports included, as an element, as a KPI within, then you will start see money flowing from all those companies that are exploiting minerals in Africa, starting to invest back in the sport, in the culture, in everything that is beyond just going and donating rice and oil, which is very nice of its own, but it doesn't create this ecosystem that will be able to provide to itself. Moreover, club owners, we have so many rich people in Africa, billionaires. Which one of them comes to the sport? Almost neither one of them, okay? How many billionaires in Europe are entering to sport? Many. This is something that needs to change. Maybe it's a tax incentive element that if you will invest in sport, you will get a certain tax incentive on a certain amount, or it will be deductible, then money will start flowing from these guys that are very powerful and have the means towards the football. Moreover, if you will give an incentive to a football club to retain its player for a minimum level of years, you will not have a player that excelled for 1 year and immediately is getting purchased by a European club. No, he will stay because the club is getting an incentive, because maybe also the player is getting an incentive to stay and to develop this element. And then another incentive for the crowd to come to the stadium. Once the crowd will come to the stadium, brands will start looking at it. Okay? Now, us as a media, we need to support all that. We need to, at first, because of the low buying power in Africa, we need to provide media support in a very affordable price in order to assist this whole ecosystem to be in the news, to be broadcasted. And that's exactly what we are doing. You're familiar with our activity in Africa, and you know that if we are charging a fraction of any other network, just because we see the potential and just because we understand that this is part of a long journey, then this is what the media needs to do. Needs to give the support, invest, and then charge a very small amount from the end user in order to generate this culture and make this ecosystem be mediatized in the best way possible.
Okay. Brian, we're going to go on a short break, and when we return, we would continue the business. But Brian, here's what I want you to keep in perspective. You know, in Europe, it is not about how fancy, how glamorous the football is. It's about cultural support. It's about community support, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're a Wrexham or whether you're a Real Madrid, you have fans from your local communities. Is that something missing in African football? And how do we get that to become maybe a strategy for going ahead? Let's take a short break. When we return, I'll come to you, Brian.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be
be with you when push comes to shove.
Welcome back to the program Sports Business with Orufo Ezaga. Joining me today from Kenya is Mr. Brian Wesala, and he's the CEO, founder and CEO of the Football Foundation for Africa. In the studio with me is Asha Thierry Alon. He's the CEO of Africa Sport Network. Brian, we were talking to you about the culture of support in Africa as different from the culture of support in Europe. How is that a possible way we can get around not having the kind of resources that probably we need today to be globally competitive?
I always hesitate to compare African football and European football and seeing that as a gap that we have to cover. I think also we're at the point where African sports, African football needs to decide how do we want to grow. You mentioned the issue we have with communities supporting clubs. Here in Africa, you see a lot of factors that have played into these. We have the big community clubs. I can tell you, for example, here in Kenya, we have AFC Leopards and Gor Mahia. These are clubs with a huge following. But now the challenge is they have not been educated well enough to put in place strategies to monetize or to develop an economic model around their fan bases. So that's one. Another kind of clubs we see here, and I think there's similar structures in Nigeria, is clubs that are either supported by parastatals or companies, kind of like a CSR project. So here in Kenya, you see one of the leading banks in the region, KCB, they have a football club. You see, these kind of entities will never have a community around them. They will never be able to develop a fan base. But these are the clubs that are holding everything, together. I believe in Nigeria you have a lot of clubs that are tied to your to the federal states. So how do you now take these and help them, for example, develop a strategy that will ground them in communities? Some here have tried, let's move our club to a certain region so that we can associate that region. I think that's the wrong approach. Those who want to invest in sports should look at teams or clubs in the communities and grow them from there. That's the challenge we have as Africa. The other issue we have is the proliferation of football academies across our continent. And this has been kind of encouraged by the idea that you can sell a player and immediately you become a millionaire, but we are not seeing how these academies are impacting what we talk about as culture, because for them they are mostly fashioned for export. So are they thinking around how they will build a community around them? Some of them are even very guarded entities. In West Africa, these are the very, very popular academies that have no link whatsoever with the community where they have been established. They have simply been put in place like a factory for players. So how do we counter all this? For me, it's about investing in the grassroots, investing in education, investing in infrastructure, build around what is already there in order to create that culture of football. But it's difficult for me to say, we don't have that, I am a Wrexham fan kind of thing. We have it. It's just that we are not thinking of how to strategically grow it. Everybody is doing something small here and there. But even if we take that whole ecosystem if we take it as a whole and see how do we position it, for investment, then you can see something starting to move socially and economically. So there are really many issues that we should start to analyze, and that's why I believe research, knowledge will be important in moving the African industry forward. It's not just about resources, and you're right, Asha, and you say, we have the resources, but that can go to a very, political level. We can say you have the resources, but how much of it is being invested in football? in sports. And the other challenge we have is that, sports football did not give that immediate return that a lot of people who hold the financial resources are looking for. But there's that social capital that we can build through sports that needs to be invested in. So how do we get more people to support our grassroots football, our grassroots structure, to be able to grow the whole industry and to grow these clubs that we're talking about, so that they can have a fan base. And the fan base there have to be huge. I have seen small clubs here develop even a digital fan base. I can give you an example of Eldoret Football Club. Very small entity in one of Kenya's newest cities, actually. But because of the strategic work they've been able to do, they've been able to build a community around what they see as values that they can promote. So these are the kind of strategies, knowledge that we need to work on to build a sustainable football ecosystem in Africa.
Okay, very well said, I think. Okay, so now, Asha, here's where the media, I'm very hard on the media, and you've been on my show a few times, and you know that I'm really, really hard on the media. Why? Because it's the media that should tell the stories. It's the media that must, that must draw in the audience. I'll give you an example. If you don't tell these stories, and the stories are there actually, yeah, but if you don't tell these stories, you can't generate the sort of buzz that would then make the billionaire that you're talking about then say, you know what, even if I don't make money from this, at least there's goodwill. Let me do this for my community, because maybe it fosters peace, and then I'll have a better business environment to operate, yeah? But you guys don't tell the stories. I'll give you an example. There's a young guy in Nigerian football today. He's Amobi. He's the GM of Rangers International. This guy took over the club last year as GM, and he took them to the championship. He won the championship, right? And every day he's out there doing what I think, what most of us agree are the right things. He's getting young people in the communities involved in the club. People are 13, 14, 15. He's talking to them about, character, how they must grow as characters, grow in character to be able to represent Rangers and the wider society and things like. He's doing a fantastic job. Yet I have not one day opened any newspaper or seen any article from any media organization in this country just doing some story about this guy that enchants. This guy is 34. Some story about this young guy that enchants younger Nigerians and makes them think, oh, so maybe this thing is possible. Maybe we should emulate this guy. I haven't seen anything like that. Why, Asha? Why aren't you telling our stories?
Well, good question.
Yeah.
But I was smiling because, first of all, I'm not familiar with the story of these guys of Rangers. And maybe,
Asha, that's a problem.
Well, it's a problem.
Yeah,
but sometimes it's a problem that is generated from its root. Okay. If I looked at the match of Rangers against El Kanemi on the first match day, and the stadium was 90% empty, then maybe the guy is doing a fantastic job, and I'm not criticizing, but maybe it's not sufficient in order to fill up the stadium, because how hard it should be to fill up a stadium in Nigeria, and it's such a populated country, that you have kids everywhere, just bring them free of charge into the stadium for the ambience. So maybe the guy is doing a fantastic job and you're familiar with him, but he's still on a level that doesn't create these waves in the pond that will come to the media. I had my journalists on grounds in each and every one of the NPFL matches since last year. Are we familiar with people that are doing fantastic job? Of course we are. We are not. Are we familiar with everybody? Definitely not. Okay. By that we can only encourage them. But sometimes people they need to come and say, look, they need to contact the media and say, guys, come and see what I'm doing. Maybe they're doing something, but no one knows about it just because they were so quiet about it.
Or maybe you don't know about it because maybe your guys need to do a bit more work, because he's a very popular guy. People,
Might be.
Yeah, people know him in the industry and what he's doing. All right, and it's something it would be refreshing someday to see this guy or to see a player. And, the stars are the business. Fans follow the stars. Today in the Nigerian league, one of the problems I personally have is you can't see guys point to 10 players and say these are the top stars in the Nigerian Premier League. Do you understand? Without seeing their pictures, without seeing any story about them, they'll tell you. We need to create these stars. Some people say it's the responsibility of the clubs. I don't totally agree with that. Do you get? I think the media should do a lot more, but the media needs to understand that by promoting the league, they too get business. Let me go to Brian, right? What's the situation like in Kenya between your media and your clubs?
First, just to take you back here, I think it's good that you brought up the story of Amobi Ezeaku, who is actually one of the speakers at the upcoming Africa Football Business Summit here in Kenya, because he's doing an excellent job.
Yeah.
And it just took me, 2 connections to see there's somebody in Nigeria who's trying to do something different. So I think this is the kind of work that needs to be congratulated, highlighted, and showcased in the summit, because the challenge now you have, and probably that's what Asha is alluding to, is that he's not doing enough. No, he's doing his bit. So we need another 5 or 6, 7 Amobi Ezeaku, the Nigerian league, to be able to create, that kind of environment that we are looking for. Yeah, coming back to the media here and the role they play, and I think this is another area that I feel we really need to work on. And again, it's for the same reason, probably we are going back to the conversation we started. Our media is heavily focused on pushing foreign leagues. Most of the people who are here are regarded as, renowned journalists, renowned sports journalists, have built their name, their brand around, foreign leagues and foreign clubs. So you see the quality of sports journalism. I'll speak here specifically for Kenya, but I think I can also talk about Africa, is not good. They're not giving us in-depth coverage of what is happening in our clubs. Yeah, you read something from a journalist or a video, and you fail to see, like, what has this guy informed me about my industry, about my club that I cannot get by my own. They just focus on probably scores, transfers, fees. But there's a lot of stories. There's a lot you can tell, even from the challenges and the opportunities. Like you say, giving good coverage to the kind of work somebody like Amobi is doing in Nigeria should even be at the global, at the continental level. And the big media outlets should be able to cover this kind of thing as a way of, even inspiring the rest of the continent. So I think there is a lot of work we can do in the media space to cover more of our local football, and even locally. It's not just covering the top clubs and top leagues. Go right to the grassroots. Bring us these stories that we feel are informing us, they're educating us, they're entertaining us with things you cannot find maybe on mainstream media. I find it strange that as African sports journalists, they share, EPL scores. Like, why would you be giving me EPL scores? I'm already following my favorite club in Europe, so I get those scores because in the age of social media. So I think there is some work that needs to be done there, and also it takes people who really will have a passion to cover, to bring African sports stories to that level that they will then be able to monetize.
Okay, Asha, I'm going to come to you, but let me also I completely agree with you, Brian, right? So I remember what got me into the big tennis events, golf and all of that. Why? And Formula One, by the way, why? There were weekends, I used to look forward to weekends just to read stories about, the conquest of Lewis Hamilton, of Tiger Woods, Roger Federer and the like. Do you understand? Just the beauty of the articles was enough entertainment for me. Do you understand? So when we look at the media in enchanting ways that, you know, the fans can say, you know what, if this is what's going on, I want a piece of that. You know, I want to see this guy that they're talking about, you know. And then before you know it, you can feel your stadiums. But yeah, Asha. So basically, you know, let me cut. I know that you want to grow the local game. We've had discussions before, but what more do you think we can do? You know, what more do you think we can do to make sure that we can bring together, you know, the key stakeholders in the industry? Look, I'm in the media as well myself, bringing you. Do you think that there's a need for the media to lead the charge, to bring together everybody and say this is how sports can progress our societies? Do you think that?
Well, Lydia, the media have a very important role that we are taking very serious. Okay, you have your radio programs, you have your TV programs. Ourselves in Africa Sport Network, we are 50% of our content is local content. And only the other 50 speaks about the whole other Western and world.
Yeah.
So we are doing our part. I think that one of the biggest challenges in Africa is that the guys with the passion don't have the means.
Yeah.
And the guys with the means, they don't have the passion.
Yes.
And this connection needs to be done, whether by, as I said earlier, by government incentives. So the guys with the means will be connected to the guys with the passion, and they will start to bring it, to create this ecosystem that will create teams that are here not just in order to sell players. They are here to grow football culture. They are here to grow this heritage of a club that is doing something not just in order to sell the player 1 year after he scored many goals or something like that. And once it will come, and this must be driven by the whole ecosystem. I cannot go to someone that has the means, and we have plenty of people in Nigeria that has the means, and to tell them, guys, please put $5 million this year on this club because it will bring.
Yeah, but
he needs to be passionate about it.
Last season, one of the richest Nigerians, Mr. Tony Elumelu, went public with the fact that he was interested in getting into the football space.
And what happened with that? Nothing happened.
Because nobody's hearing about it anymore. Nobody has said
because he decided
happened.
not to go. Because he decided not to enter to football. We were keen. We were, of course, for us as a media network, thinking that Tony Elumelu will enter. You'll say, okay, the whole group of UBA
Has
will
he come out to say that?
Of course not. But if we were just waiting for something to happen in order for us to reach out and to see what we can do together and to give it coverage. Eventually, it never happened. We cannot push the person that is maybe sending a test balloon to the air to see where the wind will take this balloon and putting all our hopes on this one. Things should happen from these guys. And the fact that he already or someone already brought the topic, I think it's something that is good, okay? I think it's a move in the right direction. But now things should happen, okay? And even if a club owner that doesn't have the means of that person can still drive crowd into the stadium and still make sure that the stadium is full once we are streaming it live, to make it more interesting. And once this will happen, people will start looking at it differently.
Okay. I have a slide on how much the rights for the English Premier League is costing, you know, us in Nigeria. And Brian, look, if that every year now, I mean, the deal that was signed 2 years ago that's expiring next year shows that the EPL costs, you know, the broadcaster $222 million every year. That's money that's leaving Africa, $222 million. It's money we don't have. You know, this is what they say, like Rome is burning and Caesar is and Nero is fiddling. I mean, look, we can't be fiddling, you know. We need to trap this money in Africa and make it do something for us, you know. So, Brian, what do you think? How do we get our markets to see the value of football, of business that we're losing because of all of this Euro football that we are angling for?
Yeah, just listening to you and Asha, I think of how I've been thinking lately is that we need to push a bigger agenda through football if we are going to rope in the right people to invest in our sports, in our football. And that has to be a very Pan-African agenda. How do we link our sports, our football, to the progress of our continent and our people? And I think when we spoke, I told you, probably it's even high time we stop thinking as Nigeria, as Kenya. And how do we think Africa? Because football is something that, you know, brings us together, but we cannot just afford to, you know, be passionate. We love football. Can we drive a huge socio-economic agenda through our sports that will now attract these big people, big money that we are talking about? It's interesting to hear people like Tony are interested in the sports space. But probably if they just see it within that lens of, I am putting my money in football, they will not, they will shy away. So we need really to push a bigger agenda, and it's something probably needs to be crafted to see how we can bring in these people. And for me, it has to be tied to, you know, socio-economic development of our continent. And, you know, link it to infrastructure, to health, to education.
Okay, Brian.
Drive all this through the platform that we have.
Okay, Brian, I need to draw your example to what's going on in South Africa. You're closer to South Africa than we are, right? And I tell people that from the very first year that the PSL was launched in 1996, they've had title sponsorships all the way through to now. I'm talking about, first they started with Castle Lager, and then it was Absa Bank, then it was DSTV, now it's Betway. They didn't wait for the product to be finished or to be some glamorous. They support. For me, I think that is support, as opposed to identifying with success. It's happening in South Africa. Why are they doing what they're doing, and why are we not doing same? You know, just basically looking at it from the point of getting corporate investors into sports.
You know, it's exactly what I'm saying. They tied it to a big agenda, and that was, you know, post-apartheid.
Yeah.
What platform is going to seem to be bringing us together? And you remember that was 93, 94 when they hosted the Rugby World Cup. Immediately, that was followed by hosting the AFCON in 1996, which was supposed to be in Kenya. But because Kenya could not put together infrastructure in good time, South Africa took the tournament. But that investment in sports was really being driven by that post-apartheid movement and uniting the people of South Africa. And that's why they were heavily investing in sports. So how can we take that to a continental level? You know, you rarely hear when, you know, they talk about Africa Agenda 2063, but you rarely hear them talking about sports in these things. Sports is somewhere, you know, really hidden. It's not one of those key areas of investment. But look at a country like Europe. I tell people, look at what, outside of these big brands that we see, you know, look at why is Europe investing in football and what kind of messages do they communicate. For example, UEFA, they have their Respect campaign. And without really realizing, they have a measure of respect for each other as countries. And people really rally behind these kind of campaigns. Media will definitely follow a campaign that has a continental reach. And with that kind of media attention, then the investors, the private people that we're looking at with the big money, they will come in.
Okay.
So we really have to tie it to a bigger agenda if we're going to grow our sports in Africa.
Okay. Very quickly now, Asha, what do you think in the age of globalization, and you have to do this like in a minute or so because we need to wrap things up. What do you think in the age of globalization we should do in Africa? From your standpoint, what do you think we should do?
Governmental change. Because once the government will give incentives for sports investments or investments in sport, the brands will start pushing it. Okay. Secondly, the government needs to decide on a national plan for development of sport in different types of sport. There is no reason why we won't have proper basketball in Nigeria. Yeah. It's not that we are all short people. So there is no reason why not to have it, but the reason is that we can't find anywhere a basketball stadium. Yeah. So once there is a national plan, long run, for development of sport, plus tax incentives for brands to invest in sports, now you'll see things moving.
Okay. On that note, we have to call it a wrap for today. It's been a very engrossing session. Thank you very much, Brian, for honoring this invitation. There's a lot that you have said today that I'm sure would energize a lot of people in the industry listening to this. And thank you very much, Asha, for being here again. It's always a great pleasure to have you in the studio with me. Right. So, Brian, you want to say?
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure, and looking forward to engage further. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay then. And Asha?
Thanks for inviting. It was a pleasure, and see you on our match days.
Okay. Unfortunately, Brian, we didn't speak too much about your Africa Football Business Summit. Yeah, we're going to talk about and I'm going to ensure that we engage again, maybe on radio next time around, and so you can elaborate on that. All right. And so thank you very much, viewers, for watching. Until we meet again next week for another bumper. Next week is going to be hot. And I'd advise you to stay tuned for who our guest is going to be. All right, it's a big name in African football, and you don't want to miss that. Until we meet again next week, this is Mio Rufo saying, be productive, be good, and stay safe.
Ìmọ́tótó ló lè ṣẹ́gun àrùn gbogbo. Ìmọ́tótó ló lè ṣẹ́gun àrùn gbogbo.
Cholera is defined as an infectious disease that is caused by ingestion of food and water contaminated with the bacterium Vibrio cholerae. It usually occurs as diarrhea, dehydration, and may lead to death if left untreated. Cholera was first discovered in 1854 by an Italian physician, Philip Pacini, during an outbreak in Florence, Italy. Also, record shows that cholera was detected by Robert Koch, a physician and microbiologist in India in 1883. In Nigeria, since its first appearance in 1972, intermittent outbreaks have been occurring. The later part of 2010 was marked with a widespread in the northern part of Nigeria, spreading to the other parts, and involving approximately 3,000 cases and 781 deaths. Unlike many other infectious diseases, cholera persists as a huge public health problem worldwide, even where there are accessible and effective methods for its prevention and treatment. The main reasons for its persistence are socioeconomic, since cholera thrives in unhygienic conditions and environments with a reputation of already fragile sanitation, especially in overcrowded areas. The major symptoms of cholera are diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, dehydration, muscle cramps, and shock. To prevent being infected with cholera, you should provide safe water, basic sanitation, and maintain adequate hygiene practices. If infected, the first aid treatment to assist the sufferer, if medical professionals are not readily available, is to get oral rehydration solution to replace lost fluids and electrolytes. Without rehydration, approximately half of the people infected with cholera will die. Severe cases need rapid treatments with intravenous fluids and antibiotics, which are to be recommended and administered by medical experts. There is currently an increase of cholera outbreak in Nigeria, and the Lagos State government declared a cholera outbreak on the 9th of June 2024. 3 suspected cases of cholera have been reported respectively in neighbouring Oyo and Ogun states. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, reported that as of 11th of June 2024, 1,141 suspected cholera cases had been recorded across 30 states in Nigeria, including Bayelsa, Lagos, Abia, Cross River, Delta, and Imo, with some situated further north, Katsina, Nasarawa, and Zamfara states. United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, says Nigeria must prevent spread in schools. With the intervention of all relevant bodies, individuals also have a relevant role to play. Prevention is better and cheaper than cure. Here are a few prevention tips. Drink and use safe water. Flush or bury poop. Wash and peel raw fruits with clean hands. Also, cook food thoroughly. Thoroughly clean toilets and surfaces contaminated with poop. Remember, health is wealth. Stay safe.
So what are the top decisions that the United States considers necessary that Nigeria must take? I like to think of my interactions as conversations, not interviews. And that's why I say asking questions is both an art and a science. Everyone says in Islam you are allowed to have 4 wives. Is it mandatory? The right question enables answers that educate, inform, clarify, and help you, the viewer, to better understand the issue before making up your mind.
Our goal is to reduce from 10 to 2 days the time it takes to register businesses in Nigeria.
Join me every week on this station, Plus TV Africa, and gain exclusive access to my conversations. I'm Angela Ajetumobi.
Shimori Badejo holds a first degree in mass communications, master's in communications arts, and a PhD in social psychology, specializing in mass mobilization. He cut his professional teeth at the old Lagos State Broadcasting Corporation, where he worked as a reporter and a news anchor. He later worked with the Guardian Group of newspapers as a journalist and writer. In 1991, Shimori joined Magnum Gold Advertising and later moved to two other reputable advertising agencies, working as copywriter and client service manager. He was a pioneer staff of the first financial corporate communications outfit in Nigeria. He established Concrete Communications Limited in 1998, a communications consultancy outfit positioned as communications auditors for corporate organizations and government agencies. It is on record that his professional expertise has sustained a lot of brands introduced into the Nigerian market and are currently leaders in their categories of business. He conceptualized and produced the first MTN-sponsored Yoruba radio program titled Tenin Teni. The program, which ran on 6 popular radio stations in southwest Nigeria for 13 weeks, was nominated for the prestigious Nigeria Media Merit Award under the category of Radio Program of the Year. For many years, he was a part-time lecturer at Wesley University, Ondo, teaching advertising and public relations. He has also been a facilitator in so many forums on communications-related activities. Shimori is a registered member of the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria, APCON, Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, NIPR, and a fellow of the Institute of Information Management, Africa. He is also a Knight of Charles Wesley. Let's welcome Shimori Badejo.
Thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure.
It's very nice to have you here. You know, I've always seen you as a man of many parts. I can't say too many parts because I see you are still acquiring more and more. Not too long ago, you got yourself a PhD in, of all things, psychology.
Yeah.
What led to that?
Well, I have a background in communication, and I practice communication. And basically, I just feel that it's a behavioral science. And for you to be able to understand your audience, you really need to go into reasons why they do some things. And then, so that was why the interest in psychology was developed. And not just psychology as a broad one, but social psychology with special emphasis on mass mobilization. And again, because I lecture, I like impacting knowledge. I like marrying the classroom with practice, theory with practice. So I chose to embark on that so that I can tell my students, this is reality, this is theory. And it has helped out.
Now that you're still practicing
as
a lecturer?
Oh, yes. I'm practicing, and then I'm also a public relations consultant.
Let's talk about public relations.
Yes,
now,
good.
How do you marry it? You're a public relations consultant. You're a very strong person in church. You're a lecturer. In today's PR practice, a great deal of networking, contacts, and all that, sometimes bordering on almost corruption or the old boys syndrome.
Yeah.
We went to school together, so he's the one we're giving the job to. How are you surviving?
Well, let me first say that we have been lucky to have loyal clients.
All right.
Loyal in the sense that we build relationships.
Good.
We practice what we preach. We don't cut corners. We're not marketing here. But I keep telling people that I think the artistic instinct in me, it comes to play in situations like that when people think I don't need money. You know, I walk away with my integrity and my head screwed straight up than to compromise. So in situations where I find myself compromising, I rather walk away.
Okay.
So a lot of people think this guy does not need money. I say, well, I need money, but I still keep my integrity intact. So it has kept us, you know, it has given us loyal customers, loyal clients. We have built brands from the scratch to what we call competitive stage. Okay. And we are enjoying their patronage. We don't want to be the biggest. We just want to add value.
And relevant.
And yes, and that's what we've been doing.
Now, you see, there's this thing about one's background and upbringing in character building.
Yes.
How has your background as the son of a reverend gentleman impacted on who you are today?
Well, it's actually the whole thing. Because I grew up in a home where the fear of God was actually implanted on us. Apart from that, my father, my mother, they were teachers. And then we were like living in a barracks, you know, regimented lifestyle. And then again, my father being a lover of music too. So I had no choice than to just pick up, you know, from there. It's so funny that when I tell people that I had no social life growing up as a child, everything was about the church. And even my plays were church. I recall that we lost a cat and I was conducting a mass
for the cat.
Wow. Because that was all I knew.
Yes.
You know, until we started having some level of freedom, and then we're going out there to see the other side of life, and our inquisitiveness also took the better part of us to see what's happening there. But that background had always drawn us back into conscience, you know, working on our conscience to always do the right thing. So it's a passion for me to serve God. It's a way of life because that was what I grew up to know.
Okay.
So it's not out of the ordinary, you know, all that I do these days to serve God.
Yeah, but you know, some people may have rebelled against that kind of rigid or regimented background.
Yeah.
You chose to stay.
We tried. I tried.
Oh, you tried too?
I tried, but it didn't work.
Oh.
My father, who was, God bless his soul, a disciplinarian.
Tell me about
it. I'd received 114 strokes of the cane as an 11-year-old boy. And
114?
Yes, I counted and I didn't steal. All because I was late for prayers, early morning prayers. So I was stuck. He removed all my clothes and I was beaten naked. My mom could not stand it. She had to walk into her room and she was crying. In those days, you know, mothers would not have a say. You know, she would just keep, you know. So, and what happened, I slept off. He rang the bell for prayers. I was not there. And they were banging on my door. And I had locked from behind.
Oh, no.
And that was the offense.
You actually invited the beating then.
Yes, I locked from. So it was a banging. Neighbors had to come. In fact, they had to climb the ladder to draw my cover clothes before I could wake up. So while they were doing all of that, my father just went into a nearby bush and was just cutting canes. And immediately I came out of it. He said, just come to my room, remove your clothes. And that, as an 11-year-old boy.
What was that like for you?
Well, it got to a point I was dead to pains. I was just lying down there, being beaten, and I was not feeling pains anymore.
By your dad?
By my father. And at some point, and that's what toughened me in life. So there is no challenge. I would say, what other pain can be much more higher than my father asking me to go and bring the cane?
Let's play a bit of psychology now. That experience,
yes.
How did you see it even as you were growing up? Let's say when you now were, say, 18 or 19.
Well, the only thing I was determined. I told myself, I'm not going to train my children this way.
Okay.
And I could hear the man too also say, he was also saying that the way his father trained him was not the way he would train his children too. So that means I will not be too far from the truth if I also choose not to train my children the way he trained me.
Yes.
And, you know, there is this story of a drunk who had 2 children. One of them became a drunk too, using his father as an example.
As an example, okay.
The other guy never tasted alcohol, using that same father as an example. So
it's a matter of choice.
It's a matter of choice.
Yeah.
And so I chose to take my father as someone who knew that was what he knew best, as
yes.
how to train a child. Spare the rod and spoil the child. And I did not, yes, when I was growing up, I didn't like the idea. But after a while, I give him credit for all that I've become. Sure. Even those tough situations that I found myself, I look back and say, if not for my father, I wouldn't be able to weather this storm.
Yeah.
Because he toughened me. There's no, even when we're growing, we're trying to be rascals. You know,
no, don't say we're trying. We don't admit it, own it. We were rascals.
Yes. So, and then I face once I look back, I think what challenge could there be? You know, so it toughened me. I saw the positive side of those
the experience.
Yeah, those trainings. That's what I saw.
But there's something else that you got from your father that I found out that you are also passing on to your children.
Yes.
You're a multi-instrumentalist.
Oh, yes.
And you're making sure they are too.
I remember, even it was also not easy.
Yes.
I remember, I think 1974, he was traveling out. He was going to Britain and he was asking everybody, what should I bring back for you? As a secondary school student, and then maybe from 1 or 2. I said, I want a piano. While my brothers were asking for shirt, trousers, and all of that. Yeah. So he actually brought the piano.
Great.
So, and he brought what they call small wood piano tutor as a guide for me to learn. So, and he gave me a deadline. While my brothers and sisters were enjoying their clothes and I was busy studying music. Yes. And it would be, you know, those days parents would serve siesta and all of that.
Exactly.
Those things we don't know what it is these days. So it would be serving the siesta in the room and I would play a key wrongly.
Wake up.
I would just hear that knock from behind. I have told you not to look at the keys while playing. And I was like, is it an offense to ask for this thing? So even my gift also attracted punishment. You know, but later in life, I started enjoying it because now I'll go to some churches, I found myself valuable, you know, even as much as I try to hide, you know, my gift will actually, expose me. Yeah. And I'm enjoying it. And I discovered that it has also, you know, helped in my literary appreciation.
Appreciation, yes.
I think so. I just chose that, okay, fine. My children too, they don't have a choice in this matter.
They don't have a choice?
They really don't have a choice.
So you copied your father?
No, I did not give them a knock. No,
they don't have a choice. You took away their choice.
No, but of course they enjoyed it.
Admit that you took away their choice.
I will tell you why I said they don't have a choice.
Okay.
Yes, it formed their background.
Good.
My first son naturally fell in love with piano.
Yes.
And my second son naturally fell in love with sax. And my daughter with a violin.
I see now.
So at some point, I was not pushing. You know, they were just trying to, and they had been performing as a group, the three of them, since they were young. So right now, the one that the saxophonists don't even want to touch the saxophone anymore. Boy, he knows it. Yeah. He can read the note, and I believe that it will still be useful. You know, for
that time will come.
So I don't. My daughter reads, all of them. They read note. They play very well, and we blend. You know, and they all play the guitar too.
Oh, good.
So I've left them to now take a decision on what they want to do with it.
With the talent they have developed.
I remember, that was the day my first son, when it was in UI. He was a pianist with a youth choir. So he said there was a day he went to play squash. And
squash, which is also
which
picked
I
up
also,
from you.
Of
We'll
course.
come to squash later.
yeah. So, and one of those choir members saw him play squash. And he knew him as an organist. He saw him playing squash. And this fellow actually wanted to go and start learning taekwondo. So my son now said, "Oh, you're just trying to learn. I have a black belt." And then this person now said, "What is it that you don't know?"
No.
So when he was reporting that to me, I was happy.
Yes.
That, okay, fine. So you have the background.
It's a
up
true
to,
body
It's
job.
up to you.
Yes.
Because I also have a black belt in judo.
In judo.
So, and all I wanted to do
Yes.
is to harm them for the future.
Good.
Equip them for the future and allow them to now be who they want to be.
You know,
So-
you hinted at the future,
Yes.
and that brings to mind something that you started doing,
Yes.
and which we at Plus TV are collaborating with you in further expanding, which is the good old days, the concept of comparing what's happening now
Yes.
with what happened when we were growing up,
Yes.
right? And we'll take a break very soon to talk about, and then come back to talk about what led you to the good old days.
Yeah.
Why the concept? What are the challenges related to it? And what it is bringing forth as a tool of communicating with the society, especially the younger generation.
Okay.
We'll take a break now. Welcome back to Timeless Conversations. My guest is Shemori Badejo. We were talking about what led you to that decision to do something about the good old days whilst growing up and relate it to today, like
Yes.
teaching history to the younger generation.
Yes. Actually, let me first say that it was also another passion.
Okay.
And it was a challenge because I was discussing with one of my children. I said, when we did our NYC, our allowance was 200 naira per month, and he said it's not possible. He said it can never be possible. That because he was wondering how we were surviving. So I realized that they lack sense of history. Nobody was actually telling them anything, and they felt he never knew who Muritala was. He never knew. They all knew about the second coming of Obasanjo. They never knew anything about. So I now look back and I felt that, look, how are we going to? Our children will lose that sense of history. So you don't blame them if they become aggressive. They grew up when Nigeria was not as good as when we grew up. So they are aggressive. They tend to question and query everything we do with anger. So I just chose to say, okay, fine. Even if history is not allowed in schools anymore, let us see how we can bring snippets of this history so that by the time you tell your story, I tell my story, they can piece it together and be able to say, this man, even if he's lying, this other person cannot be lying, this one cannot be lying, and there is a common ground for them to begin to see what we are talking about. Yes. So, and it is actually, it's effective because now in this age of Google, in this age of Google, they are now, once they listen to something, they will want to go and Google
cross-check.
Yes. I remember when one of my guests talked about the Muritala, the assassination of Muritala, and all of them. I recall that one of them called me and said, so did we ever have a head of state that was assassinated in Nigeria? I said, that's a graduate of about 3 years or 4.
Yes.
I said, yes. I said, you can Google it. So it came back to me with information that I even never knew. It was now telling me about how Babangida, Dimka, and one of them were great friends. Mama Vatsa, yes. How they were great friends, how it's because of their closeness that Danjuma had to ask Babangida to go and foil the coup. You know, he was now giving information about what happened. Now, what led him to that research? It's because of that episode.
Yes.
Now, he was now more educated about that era of Nigerian history.
Yes.
And that encouraged me to want to continue to go on, check the values, check. Someone came and told me about how they were being flogged in school in his days in secondary school for their inability to pay school fees. So one morning he told his dad, I'm not going to school today because, you have not paid my school fees and I don't want to be, receiving canes every morning. Right. And the dad said, no, I'm going to follow you. He got to the school, he went to the principal's office, he said, well, I have come to take this guy's portion of cane this morning. And the principal said, why? He said, because he's a student, he doesn't work. It's my fault. I'm the one that has not paid his school fees. So I'm the one that deserves to be punished, not this boy. I am not begrudging you for your position, for your decision. But please, let me take this stroke of cane on his behalf. And I'll be coming every morning until I pay that school fees. And they said the principal just said, no, I won't do that. So he exempted the boy from caning every morning. He said, in fact, from that day, they stopped caning them in school, in Elisha Grammar School. So this guy came to tell his story about how his dad used wisdom to change a system, a seemingly faulty system. These days, there's going to be a problem if you beat any child in school.
Big time.
These days, So our fathers had some wisdom of addressing these issues. And we need to bring back those wisdom. We need to let them know that everything is not about protest. Everything is not about, it's about looking at it holistically and finding a way.
It should be a matter of constructive engagement.
So I'm happy that for over a period of time, we've had over 100 guests coming to talk. And I keep telling people, because this is a question I always, I'm always faced with. What is the need for you? Why are you doing this? I said, I'm happy when this message is getting across to who it is getting across to. It is not financially driven. It is just patriotically driven. It is something that I feel that our children need. And then so that maybe it can reawaken. The Englishman said, comparison is odious, but it is the parameter for measuring progress. It's the best known parameter for measuring progress. Because you have to compare two things. You have to compare one era with another one to say, okay, if we started this way and we are here, so how do we move forward? So I think the future, there's no future without our past. So we need to actually look back. Yorubas say, if we don't know where we are going, we should at least know where we are coming from.
But, in watching the series, and I've watched quite a few of them, in fact, quite a number, I noticed something. Most of your guests are Yorubas or they grew up in the Southwest. Because I've seen a few people from Calabar, who are Ijaws, who either grew up in Ibadan or Lagos or Abeokuta. When do you plan to expand it to have a more national outlook?
Yes. Actually, it was supposed to be a pan-Nigeria project. But you start from your comfort zone, those that you know. And because it is not commercially driven, we're actually not marketing it. We're not expending funds into it. We just want people who believe in the idea to join us. If you actually feel that you have a story to tell, join us. And then what we have found out is that a particular sector, a particular section of the country, they are more interested in this than others. It's an eye-opener for us, because once I invite you once, twice, tries, I stop, disturbing you, because it is also conveying another meaning. People now begin to feel, why are you so interested? Why are you this forceful about me coming on the program? Is there anything? Are you looking for political appointment or something? So wrong meanings are being read into our insistence or our persistence at times, when we, particularly from some part of the country.
Yes.
And I felt that no, I would rather want people who will voluntarily want to, and we have been getting voluntary guests. Those who will call from US and say, look, I'm coming to Nigeria on so day, and before I return, I must record my own episode. And we are getting all that. And I believe that we just need to just continue. Those that are interested will have them on. And then I believe that over time, we are going to get more people from other parts of the country to also come and tell their story. It's not like they don't have a past, they do. And shockingly too, I just found out that also, our level of patriotism, some don't even believe in a Nigerian dream. Some don't feel that it is necessary. So why are you talking about Nigeria? This is Nigeria, there are so many nations in a nation. So some people, their own out view, or what do I call it, is fundamental. It's fundamentally different. So, but we will continue to push for as long as we have guests. We'll continue to go on.
Okay, I wish you the very best as you do that.
Thank you.
Let's look at the development of character. You narrated a story of how your dad disciplined you. Right. 114 strokes of the cane.
Yes.
At the age of 11.
It was actually, even when he died, it was in my eulogy to him.
To him.
It's printed, it's written.
So you know that and you were his biological son.
Yes.
These days, people hardly mete out corporal punishment. Are you in that school of thought?
Well, I'm also for discipline. I believe in discipline. I believe that you have to train a child the hard way, in a way that he will not even want. But in future, he will be thankful for it. But I also feel that it's not everything about caning. There are so many ways to skin a cat. So you can have, development has shown that you don't have to, pull your own weight on beating and all of that, So discipline, yes, I am for discipline. But the mode of discipline, now we can begin to talk about, okay, that era, that was what they knew. Because I had bruises. I don't think I want to have any child go through that.
Well, thankfully they're all grown ups now.
So even when they were growing up, yes, I did some little beating, spanking and all of that. But of course, I was conscious of the fact that it should never get to that.
You should not get up to 50 strokes. Not to talk of 140.
Maybe the highest was 6 or something, But at least they had a feel of that punishment too. But it's not. And then we try also, after maybe what our parents wouldn't do, is after that punishment to find a way of reconciling with you and then let you know where you went wrong. But we have moved beyond. So once you discipline, you also call them to let them know that, look, if you don't want this again, these are the issues.
That brings to mind something. In parenting, no matter what you read in books, and there are quite a lot of books out there, you find that there is a core necessity of ingenuity on your part as to how to engage. Growing up, it must have happened to you, it happened to me. You would have been disciplined or reprimanded wrongly for something you were not responsible for. and nobody would apologize to you.
Severally.
Would you apologize to a child, or would you advocate that, look, you need to apologize to that child in trying to build a relationship?
Oh, yeah. You see, I always say this. When I feel like this is the way, I tell them, this is how I feel. This is how I feel. You do it. I'll be the first to apologize if it's not working. So I think it builds some form of confidence in them. I said, look, I don't hate you. I just feel this is the right way for you to. And if you insist you're going to have it your way, we'll look at the dangers involved in having it your way. So if you take that decision, if it boomerangs, then the next time I advise you, you will take it. You know? So vice versa. You know, so I think it is more of interaction now these days. It's more of interaction. It's more of persuasion. It's more of making them see reasons why, convincing them on why you know they should follow a path. We are also not always right.
Yes, certainly.
We are also not always right. So I think it is engagement that we need to do, more of engagement, for us to even be able to understand them.
Yes.
You know, we need to understand them. It's not just to come and lord it over them.
Yes.
We can talk to them, even the kind of music they listen to.
Yeah.
By the time we will talk to them, and then we'll find out that some to me, some music, I would engage them and say, what is the guy actually saying? Let's analyze. Is it making any sense? Are you gaining anything from it? You know, at times we laugh over it. They say you are old school, you don't understand.
Yes,
Some they can't even interpret.
Yes,
but they are enjoying
they're
it.
enjoying it.
They're enjoying
it's
it.
the rhythm.
Yeah, it's just like someone told me. He said, one military officer years back. I said, why do you guys like music from Congo and all of that? He said, we are just enjoying the rhythm.
Yes.
Because if you dance too well to Fela, they will say you are a rebel.
Yeah, a rebel.
So let us, it is safe for us to listen to the music we don't understand.
Yes,
we just dance to
yes,
the rhythm,
yes,
so nobody can accuse us of anything. So,
Yes.
so
which brings me to mind the fact that music, you're a music practitioner, maybe not on a commercial basis, but to the extent of understanding music, playing music and all that, church music, and even folk music. I'm seeing some of the stuff you do these days. And I'm saying to you that as a practitioner of music, how would you describe the change that is building up in church music, for instance? You love singing hymns, performing hymns and all that. Many churches these days, they hardly
do the hymns.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's some music that was frowned on years back that now, that form is the accepted form now.
Yeah. Let me just summarize it. Say it is a struggle for membership that is driving a lot of innovations. In the church settings. Like you rightly said, you know, some years, some sects don't even consider music. Some did chants. But we now find out that even in Orthodox churches, we are moving away from these hymns that are so rich. I call them ministrations in songs. Some of these hymns, all you need to do is just read them, and then you begin to see that it's even more spiritually filling. It's robust when you read than when you sing them. But you see, with the age and time, we now find that our children, they want to move into more funkified things, and that is why you will see the Orthodox churches losing membership to the Pentecostal set, because the Pentecostal set have identified the niche and that gap in how to get, you know, people, members. Okay, fine. If I funkify the gospel, if I funkify these hymns, I'm likely going to get a lot of this audience with me. So once they chose to do that, you know, our children now begin to feel that that's a comfort zone. So they now move. Now you now find Orthodox churches fighting back to say, okay, if that is the reason why you are going there, let me also do the same thing. Then you now find the Protestants also saying, okay, don't worry, enough of losing our members. We too. So you now find out that at the end of the day, everybody is trying to retain their membership. Everybody is trying to see how they can get their congregations back. So, and that is the reason why you have a lot of, but some of us still believe, while we try to understand, we still believe that we should not lose sight of those richness in those hymnals. So that's why occasionally we find ourselves doing that just to take us back. It is all about good old days too. It's all about
the good old days of music
hymns and all of that.
All right, so we'll take another break now. And when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with you, our conversation with you. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. It's still Timeless Conversations. Shemore Badejo is my guest. Now, Shemo, as we call it.
Yeah, I find that more convenient and comfortable.
So
even the gate man in my office calls me Shemo.
Shemo, yes.
So that's good.
Now, in your practice of communication, what have you found missing in our national life that could be easily incorporated at little or no cost?
Well, let me say, we have not documented our achievements so far as a nation, even as a company. I feel that the simplest definition of public relations, which also relates to a nation, is doing good and letting people know. It's the simplest definition of public relations. And it cuts across, even as a nation.
Yeah.
Now, what we hear, it's people demarketing even their country. You know, talking about, this country is finished. Yeah. This is that.
That's scary.
It's scary. And how do you, and then you still want that company, and you are still hoping that it will be better when you are demarketing it. And then how do you want outsiders to see? It's not, a lot of things happen in the US that we don't get to know.
Never.
We don't get to know. But here, we are the first to condemn our system, condemn our country. There is this quote that says, for all forms of government, let fools contend. Whatever that is best administered is best. We have our own situation of doing things. I remember I was a technical writer to Nigeria's Vision 2020. And I wept when I realized the enormity of the richness, that is deposited in us as a nation. My submission then was that America is not God's own country, Nigeria is. Because we are endowed. Let's leave oil. In fact, oil should be like 3% of our natural resources. Go to Ondo State there. We have the second largest deposit of bitumen in the world. That are untapped or that are illegally being mined, being taken away. Go to Elisha. That's why the radio station there is Gold FM.
Yeah.
Elisha has the third largest deposit of gold in the world.
Are you kidding?
Oh, yes. And then we have some Lebanese feeding fat illegally on those things there and giving villagers peanuts and all of that. Go to Shaki. You have iron. Before you dig 6 feet into the ground, you get iron. And a lot of it. Go to Oshobo, where we used to have Oluwa glass. All the raw materials, what you need to do that is just drive towards Oshobo from
Is that Oshobo,
Oluwa glass?
Is that in Oshobo or in Okitipupa?
No, it's in Oshobo.
Really?
Yes. If you drive towards Ikpetu to Oshobo, you will find that the soil that you even see are shining. These mineral resources are there in abundance. A lot of it. You want to go to the north? There are so many things that we have overlooked. We are all pursuing crude oil and all
Or that
of
we
it.
don't
And
understand.
or we chose to because we feel that crude oil is giving us easy money, free money, good money, fast money. And we are not looking at those areas. To me, as a nation, we must continue to push our good side, our potentials, so that the whole world can see that it's not hopeless.
Yeah,
Our
but
nation,
see, that's something that we need to play into our communication arts.
Yes.
And I'm referring now to our movies, our plays.
Oh, yes.
They don't portray so much or anything of positivity.
Yes, it is sad. There are so many ways we can communicate our essence as a nation. Even in the movies, to me, I tell my son who read it, I said, Nigeria is still a virgin when it comes to telling our story. We have not said enough. I mean, what we do is even unreal. When we now, even if you look at the movie today, you see accident scenes, you will laugh.
Yeah.
You know, so we are jokers when it comes to even the way we present our story. So there's a lot of vacuum in that area. It is not even the way we tell our commercial story.
Yes.
Even when we do adverts, at times they don't portray reality.
Yes.
So in all spheres of communication, we should continue to strive to want to portray reality. We want to be able to have in mind that, look, this is a Nigerian product. How do we, I saw an advert. I went to South Africa, Cape Town, there's a bank, and I saw that advert, black women, they were, filing out from a bush path. Some of them were carrying bananas, yam, and there was this white man in their midst carrying portfolio and with suit and tie. And the only copy that you had on that commercial, we understand the African market. That shows that, look, we are coming to do business with these people and we understand them. We know the way they are. But what do we get here? We are always trying to want to be like them over there. Why can't they come and be like us and see that value that we are presenting? So we have a lot to do in communication, in orientation, in mobilization, in sensitization. We have a lot to do. And it's so vast. It's unending. As long as we continue to, our TV stations, our radio stations, what are we doing? Those days, there are a lot of commercial messages, social messages.
Social messages.
How many of that do we have today? Agbada ọ̀dà lọ́rùn kẹ̀kẹ́ o. Agbada rèé ó dá lóhùn àmúròde. Kẹ̀kẹ́ rèé ó dá lóhùn àmúràjò. Ṣùgbọ́n agbada ọ̀dà lọ́rùn kẹ̀kẹ́. How many of such are we having? Even on television. How are we helping our nation? Fake drugs and all of that. There are social messages on that. But how much of that? We have allowed commercial considerations to take over our role as a moral guardian to the people. I want to see a situation where we begin to have such, and then it will help to develop our psyche as a nation. And then people will now I want it to go viral. Things like that, social messages, let it go viral, let people know about the value. BCOS, when it started, there was one man said, good name is better than gold and silver. And he was singing it in that area, English.
Even OGBC used to do stuff like that.
Yes, something like that. Yes. So how many of that are we doing these days? And if we can still recall all these things, that means it had some influence on us.
Sure. There was even some that were done by late icon Ray Mike Wachuku.
Yes,
you understand me? That were played on RN2, and you identified with them. Your highway is not a racetrack.
Yes.
No matter what, no matter how tempting, never speed. Remember those you left at home are waiting to welcome you safely back home.
How
we
many,
wish you a safe journey.
How many of that?
That was engagement.
How many of that do we have these days? How many? And then all we want is, viewership, 1 million.
Yeah, but you could also think, could it be that at those points in time, those stations were government owned?
Oh, yes. Even now, and now,
yes.
We must not, that is why I said everything is on commercial, value now. But at least we are agents of change.
Yes.
The media is supposed to, generally, whether it's privately owned or we are agent of change. And then even if they take it as a CSR, a corporate social responsibility, and devote some time, to those. So it's not all about money. It's all about impact in the society.
Which is why we are running.
Yes,
good old days.
I know. That's why I
appreciate that. Okay.
Yes.
Because our audience is a young audience, so we
Yes.
want to say, okay, there was a time that this was like that.
Yes.
Talking about a time when something was like that, I recall that Elisha means a lot to you.
Oh, yes.
Right? And
I was born and I grew up there.
In Elisha. And then there's Ijebu, which is your
hometown.
A hometown.
Yes.
So if you were to take your children to the hometown, where would you take them?
Of course, Ijebu, because that's my town.
No Elisha.
No, Elisha, they heard about Elisha, but you see, there's they will still tell me stories in Elisha that you are not one of us.
Oh, then actually they do that everywhere.
So there's no place like home. No matter how long you stay in a place, the people will still tell you that, look, you better go and find your father's house, and all of that. So and my parents, after retirement,
and they went back
home.
That's good.
So that's the.
You see, I asked that question because we have a problem with this issue of you belong here, you don't belong there.
Yes.
Where you find yourself living for a particular number of years, say anything beyond 10 years, you pay tax there and all that, should be home to you.
Oh, yes.
But politically, sometimes it's difficult to engage.
It is. It is, particularly in Nigeria.
Yes.
Particularly in Nigeria, when you aspire to, that is when people will remind you of your roots.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, you have spent the better part of your life in a particular. But when you aspire for a leadership position, and then people will tell you,
not one of us.
You don't. It's not one of us. You don't.
But
you don't belong here.
How do we get out of that bind?
Well, like I said, it's also a mindset thing. It's a leadership. It's a leadership thing. If our leaders can actually say, look, enough of this. We are also going to use. We are going to. Whatever we're doing here is based on merit. It is not about where you come from. It's if you are the one that can deliver, so let it happen. Until our leaders begin to take decisions based on merit and not from where you come from. We can't on our own do that since we don't have a choice. So it is a collective resolve from the leadership to say, look, I'm going to allow the best to have a say in this matter. Once it's like that, then we'll continue to thrive.
So in conclusion, let me ask you a question that takes you back to your relationship with your dad.
Okay.
Right? And what you took away from him. I recall the story of when he was ill and all that.
Yeah.
You had to go there.
Yes.
You played some hymns to him. He raised his hands in recognition of those. And when you played the ones that were sounding hope, he dropped his hand.
Yes.
And when you played the one that was saying, take the name of
Whatever
Jesus with you, whatever it is, I'm with you.
just,
And then he will raise his hand. That's where you should be going.
Yes.
And then you were called that, come back. You refused to go see him.
Yes.
When, that's not the right way. You refused to taint your image of him.
Yes.
Right? That I'd rather see him as a victorious person than when he's dead. How was that like you?
I'm not sure I would have survived seeing him give up the ghost.
Okay.
Because we were so close at later part of his life that I won't be there to see him just take that last breath. I mean, it's going to affect me. So I felt that the best thing I could do for this man It's just allow him to go in peace and retain the picture that I saw while he was alive.
Okay.
And I think it has to do with the emotion,
Yes, I
the
understand.
emotional attachment that I had with him. And when he was taken to the morgue and I got there, I saw him, I actually ran away, but something just held me back and said, look, this man died at 88. He had done his bit.
Yes.
One day, someday, your children will bring you to, if not this place, somewhere like this place.
Yes.
So go back and celebrate him, And that was how I was able to get out of it. So I just went back and said, sir, you have done your bit, we will celebrate you, and we will continue to celebrate you.
Did you both share the love or preference for particular or similar hymns?
Oh, he was actually my influence in all my choices of hymns. Yeah. And that's why for 8 years now, we've been running a musical concert, a musical competition in the whole of Ijebu land, all Methodist churches in Ijebu. Every Easter Saturday, we always have a competition amongst all the members of the choir to donate musical instruments in his name.
In his name,
Yes, in my parents' name. My mom too was a singer. She had her compositions that I also tried to produce, and we do that, give musical instruments, give cash prize and all of that. And we are building a generation of hymn lovers, those who would see hymns as ministration in songs. And then those who are also, who want to learn one or two musical instruments, but they can't afford it. So we give them out every year, and then they're happy. And I'm sure that in the nearest future, we'll begin to see them as stars in gospel music. We produce a gospel artist a year.
Oh, you do that?
Free of charge.
Oh, okay.
And then we do to the point of launching their albums with musical videos.
Oh.
This is the 3rd year we're going to do that.
We've been doing that.
We've been doing that all free, all pro bono. And we also like to celebrate our icons too.
Yes.
Like Jimmy Sholanke, Uncle Tujo Yelano, all of them. We want to celebrate some of them. We don't want them to die on song. We wish. I recall what we did for Uncle Tujo Yelano during his 83rd birthday. That song, he never recorded it. It was when the military took over in 1983.
Yes.
Oh, yes. And then we did it, sent to him in UK. He wept like a baby.
Oh, wow.
He said he thought Nigerians have forgotten him. And I was happy we were able to do that when he was alive.
Yeah.
We did for Orlando Julius too. He was happy, in his weak moment. We thank God for the life of Uncle Jimmy Sholanke. He's still healthy and and he did also. We did. So I like to celebrate our icons. I just use my God-given resources to do all of this because I believe in the fact that we don't have to. Because how do we want the ones coming up? So if they feel that nobody will reward them for what they are doing, they look for quick money.
Yes.
And drop substance.
And even it's funny that these days the level of musicianship is dropped.
Yes.
You understand me? So there's a lot of sampling and all that.
Yes.
Everybody gets in and then he sings it. Some songs you can't even relate to them.
Yes.
But they say we are old school. So
I had cause to